Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I am Fiorella.
And I am on the ones and twos, fam. How you doing today? How is everything in Moscow?
Moscow. Everything is great in Moscow.
Guys, we have a loaded show for you today. I have 3 different banners with 3 subjects in each one, including a nice little add-in one we had to do right off the bat. 2 of them are add-in one, fam. I went away from the FTX stuff because I think we're going to have a guest on Friday as well that's going to go more into that. We have a loaded schedule, but I thought it was important that we finally address again the Bolsonaro election fraud claims in Brazil, because the election lawsuit came out today. And let me tell you what it is for all those people out there who were claiming that Bolsonaro was cheated. We'll get there because I've had enough of this bullshit. I'm going to put it to rest today, right now. And fam was there with me so we can talk about what went on. However, fam, I don't know. I might not be with you on the show on Friday because there is a protest at the Capitol in Phoenix. And I don't know if I'll have a chance to speak, but I think all the heads will be out there to protest what's going on in that election. Nobody caught anybody cheating in Arizona other than the math. The math done caught them. So we'll go over that stuff too as well, briefly. But fam, let's just jump right out of the gate. Do you have anything you want to talk about before I bring up the first clip for you?
Yeah, I think we were going to mention our good friend censorship, right?
Well, yeah, I just made that a section so we can just add that on in. You know what I'm saying? Since we got a decent amount of it in there, because it'd be a nice little small clipping.
Oh, okay. I didn't think you made it a section. But if you would like to make it a section, that's fine. So, our good friend Garland Nixon was axed from Twitter because he pissed off the wrong people. Now, a lot of people had been saying that Elon Musk was going to be better, that Elon Musk was going to save everybody, that he was going to be a free speech warrior because... What'd you say?
Elon Musk is a candy-ass clown. Sorry.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't believe it for a second. You guys know me. I mean, I don't believe in billionaires. I don't believe they should exist. So therefore, I was never on the Elon Musk train. But I said, Elon proved me wrong. Myself and other people from RT have been asking him, hey, are you going to remove the shadow ban you have on us? Because we're literally shadow banned. Like, we post a video, and normally if I posted a video before it said Russia state affiliated media, it would get normal views. Now it gets like none. And so we have to devise ways of doing that. And Wyatt, myself, and people like Rachel Blevins are victims to that, even though we really aren't doing anything to deserve it, right? And so we get placed as these shadow banned people. And Elon hasn't responded to any of it. I mean, Margarita asked him. She's the editor-in-chief of RT. He didn't respond. He hasn't responded to any of that. And so I didn't think for a second that he was going to do anything to actually fundamentally change free speech, because he has ties to the deep state. He has ties to the defense industry, and he has ties to the most important corrupt people in the world. So I was under no impression that he was going to do that, but I wanted to be proven wrong, in so many ways. And unfortunately, I wasn't proven wrong, because Garland Nixon pissed off the wrong people and he was taken off of Twitter. So this is one tweet that talked about it. They said, outrageous, Elon Musk is bringing back establishment figures like Kathy Griffin, Jordan Peterson, and Babylon Bee, and just suspended Garland Nixon, a Black reporter making real criticism of U.S. foreign policy. Musk appears to be retrenching Twitter's establishment orientation. So this is what Garland said. Garland said, mockingly, at Secretary Blinken to-do list: blow up Nord Stream pipeline. 2, overthrow Pakistan government. 3, try to rub out Imran Khan. 3, more money for Azov Nazis. 4, Istanbul go boom. 5, personally strangle some Palestinians to death with your bare hands. So he was clearly making fun of this, and he got his whole account suspended. Now, the thing is, It was very clear a mockery. And the thing is, in comparison to what Garland does, there are still Nazi accounts. Louise Mensch is still up. A bunch of accounts that are literally advocating for the death of civilians are still up. Why is his account down? Well, immediately he got his account suspended. A lot of people have been speaking out against it. We have all been saying, why is Garland's account suspended? He should be reinstated. It doesn't matter. Elon Musk hasn't responded to that. He's still talking about having free speech. But his supporters should be, to me, in my opinion, should be calling him out on this, because it's like, okay, well, you can talk about free speech all you want, but at the end of the day, are you really an advocate for free speech if you're taking down people's accounts just based, and he's not the only one, by the way, but just based on something like this, right? And so I said Garland Nixon got suspended because he pissed off Anthony Blinken in the State Department with the truth. So much for free speech, Elon, right? Because here it is. It says he got suspended for violating Twitter rules of what? Hateful conduct, right? You may not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people on the basis of their race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. He didn't do any of that in his tweet. So why is he suspended? Well, he clearly pissed off the wrong people. And this is, again, free speech for thee, but not for me, but not for thee, right? So it depends on who Elon or who the people in power see as a threat to free speech. So to me, it really is new boss, same as the old boss. I'm not at all surprised, but at the same time, I want people to understand, people who are advocates of Elon Musk, people who think Elon Musk was going to save them, a billionaire who is part of the defense industry, who is part of the establishment, who is literally being funded by them, isn't going to save you. No matter how many times you think he will, no matter how many good deeds you think he's going to do, and no matter how many liberals you think he's going to piss off, he's not going to save you, because at the end of the day, there is a parameter he has to go by. There is a shit line, and he's not going to cross it because he is a part of it. So sorry to burst your bubble, but he's not going to be your best friend.
Mm-hmm. Fam, you got here that the NAFO operation, the NAFO boys got him now.
Right. So this is the other thing that really pissed me off, because I get targeted by these people as well, being, RT, Russian state affiliated media. So Dan posted this, Dan Cohen. He said, Garland is the victim of NAFO operation. Their trolls are openly taking credit for his account suspension. And this is the thing. These accounts, like the NAFO trolls, come together and they report you. And they report you en masse, whether it's them or whether it's a bunch of shit libs. And if they get away with it, they take you down. And so this is what this Carl Naffo guy, Plant, Wisconsin, said. Hey, everyone, that Garland Nixon clown has been taken down. So he was raving about this. He was like bragging about this whole situation. And like him, a lot of people have been doing this to many accounts. And this is what they do. So what I do is, personally, I block them, because I'm not a blocker, but like I have been blocking people left and right if they're NAFO, because they will mass report you. And it doesn't matter. They'll just take your Twitter account down. And this is the thing. This is why a lot of people have been railing against this, because it's like, well, this isn't fair. Garland didn't do anything wrong. These accounts are still up. These accounts say vile shit. I mean, they are some of the most nefarious, racist, disgusting accounts, and they still get to be put up. It's just like that one time I went after Louise Mensch for going after Eva Bartlett, because she said she was basically saying, hey, well, you should go there, we'll take you out. And you know who got suspended? I got suspended for a short time. She got to stay up. And this is what I'm talking about here. It's only the people that don't toe the establishment line that get suspended. It doesn't matter if it's Elon or somebody else. Louise Mensch and these novel trolls get to say whatever they want. They can spew out Nazi bullshit. But if you say something against that, you could be very well taken down. And that's the shitty part of this. This is that we're not making this up. This is just the reality that we live in. And guess what? Elon Musk isn't going to save this or change it because he benefits from the system, because he's a part of the system. So everybody else that thinks that Elon is some sort of great guy that's going to save you, hate to break it to you, at some point he's going to piss you off and he's not going to save you and he's not going to protect you from this whole situation.
Yeah, fam. So listen, I want to show something really quickly. Let me just get it up. I just put it up just 2 seconds before we started. So let me just show really quickly. I know, man, we only got 35 votes in, but take a look at this. I don't want you guys to do the poll. I'm going to do it for 1 hour, right? Here it is. This is the poll. Who is responsible for more murder, Alex Jones or Joe Biden? And the reason why I did this is because this is important right here, because we want to understand the most important thing I think that's not getting out there is that we don't have to play this game of who gets put up and who gets put down. We want to see the algorithm. What are the decisions that are made in which you take a post down or a person down? How do you determine that? Remember when somebody put up, hey, how about you reinstate Alex Jones? He was like, no. Well, I want to know his reasons behind that, because you can't just run the platform based on emotions if you want to be freedom of speech. You can't be your decision on why you want to do that. You have to make it, you have to be clear on why you're going to do these things. So that is why, and let me just put that up really quick while you're doing that. That is why I have that post right there. I'm going to share it right now, guys, in the chat. Guys, send it out. Let's see what we can get. I have it for 1 hour. There's 56 minutes left inside that poll. I'm going to post it right down below. And guys, do us a favor too as well. Share the Rumble channel, Chili Love or Lucky Burrito. We love you guys, our mods, whatever's in the chat. Let's share that out there. Let's get all this information out there. We want you guys to start feeling comfortable going to the I'm going to put this back up, the full thing though, really quick so you can see. I want you guys to feel comfortable going to the Rumble and using the Rumble, because we can't rely on YouTube. Also, we want to start streaming a little bit more Rockfin Premium. Therefore, Rumble will be a good place to have the whole show for free. You can always go there and check it out. There are Rumble Ranch. You can leave a few bucks over there. Right now, we got 22 people watching. But I'm telling you, we can really build that channel. It's got a big pool of people and new people we can get to come to the channel. If you are a Rockfin member, please go over to Rockfin and show the love over there too as well. We have a very, very big day. So, yeah, guys, that's the question. Who is responsible for more murder, Alex Jones or Joe Biden? The reason why I want that to know is because there should be transparency in what they're doing. I said this right out of the gate. The most important thing is we want to know how we've been curtailed, how we've been silenced, whether we've been silenced on certain posts, what are the rules. We had Corey Morningstar on the morning show the other day, fam. I realized I didn't see any. I went to her Twitter thinking, oh, I might not be following her. No, I've been following her. I never see her tweets. She never sees any of ours. So we got to know how the algorithm works. And that's what we want more than anything. If, in fact, you want to have some justification on why you're taking down Alex Jones and you refuse to reinstate him, but you'll let Joe Biden stay up, we want to know exactly why. That, I think, is much more important than this whole game of this person gets to go on instead of that person. So,
yeah, you're right. I never see her stuff anyway, like literally ever. So it's not surprising. This is how things work. But yeah, this is nothing new. I'm not surprised it happened to Garland. I think this could happen to any of us at any given moment. I don't see that it's going to be safer under Elon. I do think he pisses a lot of liberals off, but I don't think it seems beyond the realms.
It seems staged. It really does. It
of
seems
course,
like let's concentrate on this guy and who he likes and what team he's playing for, rather than concentrate on the actual substance of what's going on. Before we move forward, people have to understand this, that any type of open source platform is going to be much more transparent than it would be if it's a proprietary software. I know people's like, well, it's a private company. Well, how come all those shitlibs that are crying about Elon Musk aren't saying it's a private company now when he's doing that, as opposed to what they said before? And it doesn't make a difference. They, under the NDAA, they are entered into an agreement. You're going to be a platform, not a publisher, meaning you can't pick winners or losers, and you are now protected from any type of litigation. Well, they broke that law, and they should have to pay a price. And if anybody wants to have that protection, then they should abide by the rules. And that's just showing us the transparency. How do you make decisions? Not the fact that I just want to see how badly I've been, shadow banned and how badly, we've been demonetized and how they did it. It's the fact that if it's ever going to be free and it's going to be about citizen journalism, which Elon claims that's what he wants, then open up the hood and let us see the engine. That's all I got to say about that one, fam. So, I mean, I want to know, if he lets the Babylon Bee come back, then why are they suspending freaking Garland Nixon, who is clearly joking? And how do you make that decision? And can you criticize a guy on his job? Because I didn't see that on the list of things we can't criticize our elected officials. This is shit for Elon. I don't give a damn if he's using the excuse that he hasn't have everybody in place yet and stuff. These should be like the first things he should have done when he walked in the door. Fam, anything else?
No.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I was never under the impression he was going to do anything for people. So, I mean, I hate to break it to you guys, but I mean, he was not going to ever help people. So, unfortunately, I was right. And unfortunately, a lot of us who understand that billionaires aren't going to save you were right, because he's a billionaire and he has ties to the defense industry, and he was never going to save anybody about anything. So,
nobody
I mean,
becomes a billionaire on accident. Just
no, you don't. And you
Yeah.
can become a millionaire by doing certain things, but a billionaire, like, I'm sorry, you can't be a normal person and become a billionaire. So once you're ready to accept that fact, then maybe you can understand where we're at. So let's just get to it in terms of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So Fidel Castro was very present the last few days because a monument was put up in his honor, and the current Cuban president, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermudez, attended with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And this monument is in Skol, Moscow area. I have to go visit it soon, but I haven't been able to because I've been working, and also it's been like the nastiest rainy weather. But there was this monument put out. But more important than the monument, obviously, it signifies a symbolism of these two nations who have been targeted by the West, particularly by the United States via sanctions. More importantly than that was just a commitment to each other and saying, hey, we will always be allies. We will always be together against what we have to face, and we have a common enemy. This is a big deal to say for a president, for a leader to say that the United States is their enemy. It's a big deal. Even now, when the United States is obviously clearly just unraveled itself, clearly exposed itself, it's still a big deal for two countries to say that it is its mutual enemy. And both Russia and Cuba have said as much. And you guys know that I was in commie heaven covering this. And unfortunately, somebody made us a picture, put pasta into Fidel's face, even though Fidel would never be pasta.
Newspaper men.
No, he's a newspaper man and you're a newspaper guy. Two different things entirely. But anyway, so we'll get to that. But let's hear what Díaz-Canel said in terms of the loyalty to Russia and in terms of how they see this conflict with Ukraine.
Fam, are you going to read as it goes?
No, it's right there.
Yeah, but people who are just listening, that's why. I just
feel like it interrupts.
I'll mute us then and just put it on there. So.
Okay.
Cuba condena enérgicamente las sanciones que hoy se imponen de manera unilateral e injusta a la Federación de Rusia. Las causas del conflicto actual en esta zona hay que buscarlas en la política agresiva de Estados Unidos y en la expansión de la OTAN hacia las fronteras de Rusia, lo que Cuba ha denunciado de manera sistemática en foros internacionales. Cuba condena.
Okay, so he said Cuba strongly condemns the sanctions imposed unilaterally and unfairly on the Russian Federation. Cuba has long condemned these sanctions, and he's talked about how the cause of the current conflict goes back to the aggressive policies of the United States and, of course, of NATO's expansion towards Russia's border. These are things that we know. If you watch the show, you know. If you have anything to do with looking into this conflict, you know. But most people do not know this. Most countrymen, presidents, leadership, diplomats don't say this out loud, even if they know this is the truth, because they know that it's going to hurt them, that there's going to be backlash. The fact that Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez said this is a big deal because he's saying what we all know to be true out loud. And he's saying, you know, without the US's actions, without the actions of NATO, we wouldn't be in this situation. This wouldn't be happening. And it's not just saying, okay, well, Russia and this and Ukraine. It's talking about NATO and the actions taken by NATO. So this is a big deal for somebody of that level to say this. And it's not like Cuba is like, you know, in some position where they could say this and get some sort of benefit. They're not going to get any benefit. But at the same time, it's still a big deal for them to say this to a small island nation. They have defied Western sanctions. And like Russia, they have been targeted with vilification. They've been looked on as being evil. And, you know, because of this, these two nations are coming together and kind of defying the West.
All right, fam.
Yes.
Yeah, these statues.
Okay. Well, it's not these statues, it's a statue. So this was the unraveling of the Fidel Castro statue. And this statue, of course, was unveiled in Moscow. And it is a kind of commemoration to Fidel and to who he was as a leader. And this is kind of crazy because, you know, Russia isn't a communist nation. Russia is not a nation that is it's not a communist nation, right? It's not a nation that is literally still lying in those areas, but it's still a nation that has these ties, right, from the Soviet Union. So it was a big deal that Putin and Diaz-Canel came to pay their respects to Fidel. And there's a lot of Fidel's Putin said a lot of things about what Fidel meant, what Cuba has undergone. So it's a big deal. And again, like, this is coming from a capitalist nation in Russia. This is not coming from, you know, Putin. Putin isn't some sort of commie. Putin is a conservative. Putin is not this guy that's trying to bring back the Soviet Union like many people have claimed. Putin is a conservative. So the fact is that this is a big deal for that reason.
And here it is, the unveiling of the statue, fam, which looks pretty damn cool. And you got Canal and Putin together. You said moments ago, President Vladimir Putin inaugurated a moment for Fidel Castro in Moscow with Cuban President Miguel.
Give me a second, fam. I'll be right back. Said, give me a second. I'll be right back.
Right. So that's what's going on over there, guys. You can see it. I'll put it up full screen. And yeah. Oh, my bad. Let me mute him. But anyways, yeah, there it is. There's the moment. Let's play it real quick. Guys, do us a favor. Do all the places to share the Convo Couch.
So you guys saw that.
That was the unveiling of the statue.
Yeah. It's a big deal. I don't know. I don't think people realize this. Like, and apart from the statue, is that they pretty much cemented this relationship that has been just pertinent from before, from the to times of the Soviet Union. And even though Russia isn't a Soviet nation, Putin recognizes what Cuba has endured as a nation that has been able to deal with US sanctions, just like they have, right? They have had to become ingenious, creative, and done whatever they could to deal with US sanctions, to be an island nation so small. Because Cuba is an island. It's a tiny, tiny island, right? Right off the coast of Florida. It's not Russia. Russia is a gigantic country. I don't think people realize how big Russia is. It is huge. Like, you could, I mean, Russia takes up half of the earth, if not more. Like, it is that big. And it has so many natural resources. It has a vast variety of peoples. It's not just like everybody that you think is Russian, it's Russian. The more east you go of Russia, the more diverse people get, and the more different types of terrain you have. It's completely different. But the fact is that these two nations have been able to escape, or in some ways deal with, the sanctions from the West, particularly the United States. So there is that camaraderie. And in spite of their differences politically, you know, where Russia is a capitalist country, Putin has by no means zero intention. He has no intention of going back to the Soviet Union, like some people claim. He understands that even though Cuba is a socialist nation, that there's that bond. And I think people need to understand, like, this goes beyond ideology. This is about the fact that these are two nations opposing Western hegemony. And it's very important, in my opinion, to see this aspect of it, because I don't think a lot of people do. And he said Russia and Cuba have a common enemy, the Yankee Empire. This is what Diaz-Canel, the president of Cuba, said, which manipulates a large part of the world. Who knows this better than we do? We have been experiencing this for more than 60 years, being under a blockade. Literally, the only two countries that voted against ending the blockade against Cuba were the United States and Israel. The two countries that you could say, and I have zero qualms in saying this, and I will get in a fight with anybody, journalist or not, about this. The two countries that are colonizers, the two countries that have fucking killed people in vain, that have zero like problems going and becoming just complete and total colonizers of a country and literally murdering people, because without the US, Israel wouldn't be able to do what they're doing to Palestinians. Israel wouldn't be able to bomb Syrians before breakfast every day. Israel wouldn't have the Iron Dome without the funding of the United States and of Europe. So without that, Israel wouldn't be anything. So when we're talking about two countries that have destroyed so much of the world, that have been have gone out without impunity and just gone and done whatever they want, we're talking about countries like the United States and Israel. And these two countries, of course, were the ones who voted to maintain this blockade against Cuba. And what does a blockade do? What do sanctions do? They make it impossible for people in a country to survive. It's like you can't get access to your food, you can't get money to be able to take care of your people. And it creates these conditions where people have to leave the country, or they have to be able to deal with the current situation. And so then what you have is a bunch of gusanos in Florida and a bunch of gusanos all over Latin America, particularly though in the United States, and say, well, if Cuba's so great, why are all these people running away? Oh, because of the fucking sanctions, you asshole. Because of the blockade. Because they have been under an embargo for 60 years now. So because of that, yes, you're going to have people that say, you know what, we can't deal with this. We need to find some sort of other solution. So what do? They leave. And that's the thing. You can't tell me that these sanctions don't cause any issue because they do. And if you want to actually end immigration into the United States, and if you want to end this sort of problem that the United States has, how about we stop sanctioning and blockading countries like Cuba, countries like Venezuela, countries like Nicaragua that dare to defy the United States and dare to defy the empire? Because that's the reality. And Diaz-Canel said, we have a common enemy, the Yankee Empire. And the fact that he says it, just like our main man from Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, is a big deal to me, because we need more people to say it like that. We don't need people to beat around the bush. We don't need people to walk on eggshells. We need people to say it. The Yankee Empire is the reason we cannot get shit done. You want people to stop coming into your fucking country? Well, stop making their country a gigantic mess. It's that fucking simple.
Yeah, I just want to point out that sanctions are one of the number one causes of migration. You blockade a country, you thrust sanctions on it, you make it really hard for them to survive. There's two things that could happen. Number one, they'll just flee for a better opportunity. Number two, they'll flee for a better opportunity in the country that caused those pain and those problems. So that's why we've talked to a lot of people when we were in Honduras and they made their way over to the United States because they felt directly affected from the United States from the decisions they made when endorsing a fraudulent election, when imposing sanctions, when having military bases with their American troops in their country. We see the effects of it. And it's just like Daniel Ortega says, Yankee go home. Well, this is Russia and Cuba realizing they have that same common ally. They are the same common ally who has the same common enemy. And I really want to give big ups to Russia for standing by Cuba, not only back in the 60s, but now as well, too. I mean, they don't have to. Russia benefits nothing except actually confidence in other countries that they stood by Cuba and still standing by Cuba to this day. Fam?
Let's hear what Vladimir Putin had to say about Fidel. Let's just hear it.
Как Фидель сам говорил, он был готов приезжать в Россию в любое время, летом и зимой, со снегом или без снега. Наша страна неизменно поддерживала свободолюбивый кубинский народ и руководство республики. И мы знаем, что это взаимно. Куба была, есть и, уверен, всегда будет нашим последовательным стратегическим партнером, союзником в мировых делах. Дорогие друзья, российско-кубинская дружба, завещанная нам Фиделем Кастро, общее достояние наших народов. И вы, господин президент, представляющий новое поколение кубинских руководителей, вносите огромный вклад в развитие дружеских, доверительных отношений между нашими странами. Совместно будем и дальше укреплять наш союз и сообща защищать великие ценности свободы, равенства и справедливости. Благодарю вас за внимание. Как Фидель сам говорит.
So, a couple of things here. Pasta is, people were calling him Fidel Castro, but he's not there yet. He still has a long way to go. But in terms of what Putin said, I mean, this is a reality, right? They're saying we're going to consider Cuba our long-term partner, our long-term ally. This is not going to change regardless of what happens. This is a big deal. As Pasta just said, realistically, Russia doesn't have anything to gain from this besides clout in Latin America. I mean, they really don't need this. Same with Venezuela, right? There's a strong relationship between Russia, Venezuela, Russia, Nicaragua, Russia, and Cuba. This is a relationship that goes back to the Soviet Union era. Putin has no reason to continue this. If he wanted to, he could say, you know what, you guys deal with your shit. We have nothing to do with this. They don't gain anything from this. What they do gain is a sort of solidarity across the Atlantic, across, the entire stretch beyond Europe. And it's the solidarity of being nation sanctioned and vilified by the United States. It's much more than economics, because there is obviously economic benefit to having trade with Venezuela with the oil, having tourist interactions with Cuba. As I said, like the plane situation, there's going to be use of the MIR cards, which will allow Russians to be able to go to Cuba on tourism, but will also allow Cuba to benefit from Russian tourists because they're the main tourists that have come to the nation of Cuba. Russians have been, right? It's been this long time thing. And then you have Nicaragua with developments with China and of course Russia, and you have transportation, you have trade, you have rubles and cryptocurrencies, you have all of these things, but really Russia is a much bigger economy. They really don't necessarily need that. And so for me, it's more of like, okay, there's this sort of ideology that you're seeing. And here, once again, with his meeting with Diaz-Canel, Putin reiterates this whole sentiment saying, you know, this has always been the case. It's not going to change. We're going to maintain this. They don't benefit. They just get vilified more. The United States is not like this at all. They do not like this. They're not going to like this one little bit.
Well, I want to kind of talk about what it's going to be like when it comes to the mainstream media and the way the government is going to spin this. They're going to constantly kind of go back to that whole, you know, Cuban Missile Crisis. This is what Russia wants to do. They want to poke and provoke us. They're going to say that what Russia's doing with Cuba is more ways for Vladimir Putin to poke the bear. In this case, not the bear, the United States in getting on their borders once again. But what is any different than NATO arming all these Baltic countries and putting nuclear missiles on their border than what the Cuban Missile Crisis, what Russia did back then? I don't think Putin's going to pull that off. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he's going to try to attempt to do that because that would just be too much. But that's the way it's going to be spun, I think, fam, by the mainstream media. They're going to say, look what Russia and Vladimir Putin are doing. They're instigating. This is why we're supporting the freedom fighters in Ukraine.
Right. So, and you're absolutely right, Pasa. That's what they're going to try to say, but it's not going to work because they're hardly the only nation doing it. There's alliances being made left and right with BRICS and with other organizations that are completely leaving the West behind. It's a new era. So let's see what happens, right? We can't blindly go following what's going on, but we can say, okay, let's see what happens here. These are some positive developments. We'll watch everything, of course, according to the globalist agenda. So let's take a look with what Putin says.
Советский Союз, Россия всегда и сегодня поддерживали и поддерживают кубинский народ в его борьбе за независимость, за суверенитет. Мы всегда выступали против различного рода ограничений, эмбарго, блокад и так далее. Всегда поддерживали Кубу на международных площадках. И мы видим, что Куба занимает такую же позицию в отношении нашей страны, в отношении России. Все это результат традиционной дружбы, которая была заложена товарищем Фиделем Кастро. Советский Союз, Россия всегда...
I was trying to see if I could figure out when he said comrade, and he did. He said tovarich, which is comrade in Russian. Guys, I'm literally learning Russian, so I'm very proud of being able to understand that. But what he was saying, this was figured out, the bond between the two during the time of Fidel Castro. Again, this is a big deal because for the longest time I've been saying, look, Putin does not want to restore the Soviet Union, and he really doesn't. He's not some sort of commie under the radar. But he understands where the people of Russia are at. He understands what's going on, and he understands that this isn't an ideological fight between capitalism and communism anymore. This was what they told us, right? Was a fight back in the 60s and even onto the 80s, where it was like, oh yes, the United States is the capitalist country that's going to fight for your freedoms, and the communists is just a bunch of people that are trying to control and take away your freedoms. That's not necessarily the case. Russia is a capitalist country. I live here, right? Russia, specifically Moscow, is a capitalist area. I mean, you have the love of, brands, the love of malls, the love of just industrialization. It's not at all by any means a country where even a city in Moscow where people are like, happy to just like go into some sort of bread line. I mean, this is like a country that has restaurants, bars, just so much in like industrialization, so much capital in it. That's not where Russia is trying to go, specifically in Moscow, where people are way more pro-Western than in the rest of Russia. And it's this idea that, oh, because Russia is Russia, there's some sort of like commie. No, even though the Communist Party is the second largest, most influential party in the government, Putin's party is by and large far like the biggest, and they're definitely more of a national conservative, or at the very least just more of like a mixture type of economy than anything remotely close to the Soviet Union. And so when people try to make this like very simplistic and say, oh, this is just a bunch of, like communists trying to take over, that's not the case. This is more about some sort of equity and countries fighting and having some sort of equitable partnership in the global market, being able to trade freely with other people without having someone they have to bow down to, being able to be like a country like Russia and being up and coming and competing in the big market. And obviously nobody's saying Putin is some sort of like hero and he's going to come and save the world. But at the same time, is he evil? Not necessarily. And I think some people get stuck in like, well, all of these countries are cartels. All of these countries are the same. I don't think you can be that reductive. I don't think you can be that simplistic and say these are all the same country. These are all just like equally evil. You cannot compare the United States empire that has nearly 1,000 military bases all over the world to Russia or China. Even if they have faults, even if they're not perfect, even if they have things that we can all criticize, you cannot compare the United States with these two countries. I'm sorry, you can't. Like, you're not going to tell me that they're the same, that they're all just a bunch of cartels and they're all the same because all the states suck. And this is what my issue is with the anarchists when they do this shit, because it's like, it's not the same thing. Realistically, it's not the same thing. Ideologically, you can go back and say, okay, maybe, all states are bad, whatever. But like right now in front of you, it's not the same thing. So that's my whole situation with that.
I think that a lot of people too really are confused. Especially they still think that Russia is communist. They still think that Brazil and Lula is a communist. They still think. I saw a post the other day, and it might be closer to a socialist government than anything is Bolivia, but somebody said that there were people who were out in the streets protesting against communism. And really people are still trying to make this stupid argument and connect these stupid dots, blaming China for everything. It's kind of getting a little bit, exhausting listening to it and stuff. The communists are not hiding under your bed. They're not coming to get you. What you're worried about is authoritarianism. And really, to tell you the truth, what's really at stake right now is stakeholder capitalism, and it's a form of capitalism. And you know what I'm saying? It's a form about small entities sucking up as much resources as possible, is forcing you to choices. Yeah, there's something wrong about a centralized government. Yeah, there's something wrong about too much power on top. But number one, every country is entitled to their national sovereignty, which means we should stay out of it. And number two, we really have to call it for what it is. Russia is not a communist country. Brazil is not a communist country. So stop it, guys, already. And stop with it being that the ism is the number one thing that you have to fight about. Really, to tell you the truth, everybody's being moved back into these corners where a lot of these conservatives, a lot of America First people, friends of mine, they think that communism is like the number one enemy. The number one enemy is these fucking oligarchs, these small groups of people who are trying to control everything, to grab all the resources, have everything under control. There's been a lot more, I think, harms created under capitalism, especially the imperialist capitalism that's going on blowing. Yeah, it is. It's a form of globalism, but they've gone around blowing the places up. So I don't understand how you can sit there.
But that's by design.
Yeah.
Costa, like that,
Absolutely.
it's by design. You get the right to blame communism and you get the left
To
to
blame
blame the right.
Yeah.
And then it's like they're not really getting to the crux of the problem, is that they're using these ideologies to create these versions of these ideologies against you, while literally keeping you from actually tackling the real enemy, which is this globalist system that is a fascist system. Whether you believe, nobody's asking you to go and support communism right now. If you don't like communism, don't go to Bolivia, which is a movement towards socialism. Don't go to Cuba, which is the closest thing to socialism. Don't go to China. Don't go to any of these countries. Nobody's telling you have to go live there, that you have to go,
They have
hang
a right
out
though
in
to
these
pick their own
places.
government.
You can, deal with your own government and say, okay, well, we're not any of these things, clearly, because, right, the United States government vilifies all these other governments. So clearly they're not that. So what's wrong with your government? Like your government isn't a socialist government. So you can't say, oh, these socialists. What socialists? AOC is not a socialist. She's a fucking neoliberal puppet. Like she's a neoliberal piece of shit. Like she's not anything remotely close to anything that I would view as socialism. And I'm telling you this because I can't stand her, because at one point Pasta and I supported her, and when we found out who she really was, we changed our mind. And it's that simple. If I was some sort of fucking commie trying to lie to you, I wouldn't tell you that. She is like the furthest thing. She is like a Democrat establishment hack influencer for Instagram to try to get people back into the fold, especially young people. This is about neoliberalism that has become neo-fascism, right? Taking control and bringing us into this globalist state. Now, there are elements of the right and the left in it, and then there's everybody else who understands that they're weaponizing that to get us divided and to try to turn us against each other instead of at them. And that's the reality. I really don't care what you believe in or who you voted for or who you want to vote for. I'm just telling you right now, no Trump, no Biden, no AOC, no DeSantis is going to save you, because the reality is these people are not your friends. They're trying to turn you against each other so you don't go after them. And that's the reality we live in. And they're trying to continue this endless game of blue versus red, black versus white, blah, blah, blah. It's woke versus anti woke. Like, none of these things matter. What matters is, are these people going to make your life better? No, they're not. Okay, if they're not, then who is going to make your life better? Nobody gives a shit except you and everybody else that's affected by it. So the reality is your government doesn't care because you don't do anything to change things. The United States just approved billions more dollars in the federal budget to give to Ukraine. What's it going to take for the American people to do anything about it? Because they haven't done anything about it. And the less you do about it, the less they care. So it's not going to happen, right? And again, just to finish on this subject, both of these countries, Russia and Cuba, have faced unilateral sanctions. What is going to keep people together more than facing these two obstacles from one common enemy? By the actions of the US government and the actions of the EU and the actions of NATO, these two countries have come close together. The same thing has happened with China. What's going on? Oh, yes, these countries that have been under the oppression by the United States are going to become close together. They have zero desire to work with a country that's going to vilify them and belittle them and disempower them. And that's just the reality of where we're going. It's not rocket science. It's just a reality. Why the hell would they want to work with you? Why the hell would you want to hang out with somebody that constantly tears you down and tells you you're a piece of shit and disempowers you? You're going to hang out with people who are going to unite with you against a bully. And the United States is the bully in this case. And that's really what's happened for the last 60 years against Cuba. Literally, there's no reason to continue this embargo, whether you like them or not, whether you agree with socialism or not. It's none of your goddamn business. Let them be who they want to be. It's that simple.
Last comment. Diaz-Canel said later this, fam.
He said this visit comes as both Russia and Cuba are under unjust unilateral sanctions and have a common enemy, the United States, which manipulates a huge part of humanity. We have felt that pressure for more than 6 years. I mean, that says it all. I mean, there's just no other it tells you everything, guys. This is, I mean, they have felt this. See, do you know what 60 years? This is what I think a lot of people in the United States don't grasp. You don't understand what it would be like to live 60 years under sanctions. We don't. That's why it's so easy to say, well, Russia shouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Well, blah, blah, blah. You haven't experienced what it's like to be bombed, to be shelled, to be under sanctions by a bigger power. And that is a privilege I hope people in the United States never have to experience, but I think that's coming to an end. Because that is something that I think, the United States foreign policy, we talk about this all the time on the show, right? Our foreign policy is our domestic policy, but for the most part of our lives, our foreign policy hasn't come home. We haven't had to experience being shelled or bombed or done all this shit, because the moment anything remotely like that happens, 9/11, what do? Oh, we literally go and destroy and kill millions of Iraqis. So, I mean, this is a reality. Or we say, okay, we're going to have the Cuban Missile Crisis, just like Pasta alluded to in the beginning of the show. But like, we haven't actually experienced what it's like to live under these conditions. The moment people in the United States actually experience what it's like, I think their perspective will change. And I don't know if we'll get to that point, but it just it might have to get to some sort of point where people in the United States feel, because honestly, Pasta, and I said this in my tweet, why aren't people out there mass protesting against this shit? You're giving billions and billions more dollars to Ukraine. Why aren't people out there mad? The homelessness crisis is out of control and people are still just sitting back and pretending everything's fine.
Yeah, it sucks. It's a shame. People will get out in the streets, like we said, and definitely get out there. George Floyd was a good example. But and I'm not saying it wasn't a horrifying death. Like I said to Igor the other day, I believe it was definitely racially motivated. You can be upset that they didn't mention their relationship beforehand, maybe a little context and backstory. But at the end of the day, I'm just a little upset that even though this horrific thing happened, and yeah, you have every right to get in the street, America drops bombs every day. For the 8 years we killed we supplied the weapons that Nazis used against people of the Donbass, where women, children, gays, ethnic speaking Russians, the whole 9 yards, had to hide in their basement, as 14,000 of them were murdered over the course of 8 years. And that's just one area. What happens in Libya? What's going on with Libya? You're not going to get in the street. There's an actual slave trade that's going on, an existing slave trade, mainly because NATO, America's friends, France, England, went ahead and decided to remove their leader who was going to implement the currency backed by gold. And you can't have that. And what happens? Hillary Clinton's still on Twitter. She can go say, we came, we saw, he died. Right. And I should have even put Hillary Clinton on the thing, but I know Hillary Clinton will win by far. But I just wanted to prove a point when it came to the whole Alex Jones situation versus these people. Our foreign policy is our domestic policy. We've been saying it for quite some time. Fam just alluded to it, and we need to understand it. And if we're going to get out in the streets for a man being killed right there, we should get out in the streets for thousands being killed every year. I think it's close to 50,000 people are killed by U.S. bombs every year. Now, that's different now, because we've had the Ukraine situation since we've armed them to the T. But if we're going to be consistent, let's be consistent across the board. Let's get out there.
100%.
All right. Let's go right into the next subject, fam, so we don't waste any time. Zelensky. He's always a fan favorite over here, fam. What do we got here?
There should have been something else before that, but basically Zelensky has actually approved a law that makes it impossible for people to be held accountable for their for their corruption. So basically what he did was he made it so you couldn't tell who gives money, right? Outright money to corrupt entities, and you can basically do what you want. So I'm actually gonna like pull it up and actually look at this so you guys get the right information. But this just goes back to, in spite of Zelensky doing this, right? If you guys recall the Pandora Papers, they proved that Zelensky rose to power via Kolomoisky, right, who was funded by some of the most corrupt people, and there was several of his own people and his own just associates that were pretty much funded by the just the most corrupt people of Ukraine. And we know that Ukraine is like a corrupt country, but like this just goes beyond that, right? And so I'm gonna pull up this thing right here where let's see right over here. Okay, so here it is. Let me pull it up. It says Zelensky signed this law, and it abolishes a lifetime financial monitoring for officials. So, in order for Ukraine, and this should be pasta, it should be like the under Zelensky, under Lord Putin, it should be the second,
You
the
want
second,
Twitter? Okay.
yeah.
So you don't want the
No, it's on the documents. It's on the documents.
Yeah, lights out, and then right underneath the lights out. Is that what you want?
No.
You see the document?
Oh, you're okay. So you went. Okay, so
We're in
you
section 3.
went. Yeah. Okay, but you went to the other one. Okay.
Lights out is the first one. It's the Pandora Papers. That's what you have there.
Yeah. So go to the tweet if you want to go to the
second
tweet
one?
first.
Okay.
Yeah. So Zelensky actually signed into law this thing that makes it impossible for people to be held accountable for their corrupt actions. But apart from that, he also was trying to blame Putin for the vast array of things that are happening. And he obviously has a lot of accusations of Ukraine being corrupt. But right now, what I have on screen is breaking news that the vast majority of the portions of Kiev, Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Lviv, Kirov, Rovno, Lutsk, Nikolaev, Odessa, Sumy, Poltava, Mirogorod, etc. All of these regions have been experiencing just complete and total blackouts. Why? Well, because Russia attacked their energy infrastructures. And not only are they experiencing that, but the metro stations are also experiencing outages. And also, they are experiencing water shortages, which means people are having a hard time getting water. So, that is the breaking news right now. Throughout the day, Russia has targeted the energy infrastructures of these areas. And Zelensky, of course, has tried to say, well, everything's fine. We're creating these little regions where you can go charge your phone. Basically, in metro stations, they created these regions where you can go and take your phone and charge your phone and go there. But it's extremely difficult right now. Most of these areas are completely, totally blacked out. They don't have access to lights. They don't have access to energy. And that's what's been happening throughout the day today. And that's something I wanted to point out as well. And if you go to the, I think I put it in there, if you go to the Telegram, there's some data on the results of strikes in Ukraine, emergency power outages. Like I mentioned, Kiev and the regions, Dnipropetrovsk, Kryvyi Rog, Poltava, Nikolaev, Zaporozhye, Kharkov, all of these areas, Nikolaev and Odessa. So all of these areas are experiencing shortages, and you guys can see in these areas. And they're also experiencing, of course, water shutdowns. This is a big deal. Obviously, if you don't have water, it creates a situation that's not good in terms of like being able to survive and being able to deal with what's going on. So there's a video I want to show, and on the next one, and it's footage from Kiev where there are lights only on emergency backup power. And there are tons of videos like this. You guys can go. They're not going to be on mainstream media. They're going to be on RT. RT has covered this. There's going to be videos on Telegram. But if you go to certain videos, you'll be able to see exactly what it looks like. So you guys can see some of these videos, and we'll post them up. You can just play it, Pasta, while I talk, and you guys can see what it looks like from the latest, I would say, like maybe 12 to 16 hours of today. Just like very little few areas where people can actually be and where there's actual power. And if you look at the map here, the map that I posted on the document, you can see the areas where they have like little fire signs. Those are the areas where there's been power outages, which is a vast majority of Ukraine. In the reality is Ukraine doesn't have the missiles, they don't have the weapons, they don't have the necessary artillery to be okay. Everything that you get about Ukraine being able to fend off Russia is literally coming from Western media trying to make it look like it's okay, but it really isn't. We're looking at all of these areas in Ukraine, as you guys can see, power outages everywhere, little access to water, little attacks to the energy infrastructures. This is in spite, of course, of the West saying that Russia has losses, blah, blah, blah. I think we're seeing a shift, and this is something I wanted to talk about. We're seeing a shift now in the rhetoric. Many Ukrainian officials and US officials are saying there is no Ukraine victory possible. There's going to be some sort of, talks, some sort of negotiations happening. We're seeing that shift happen probably because the United States, EU cannot keep giving blank checks to Ukraine. However, recently, of course, we know that the US budget has allocated billions more for Ukraine. So we know that there's still this attempt to make it look like they're going to do whatever they can do for Ukraine. But at the end of the day, this isn't really going to happen. And in spite of that, of course, we know that the EU has tried to still vilify Russia and say that Russia is a terrorist state sponsor, basically trying to label Russia as this sponsor of terrorism, which is hypocritical at best, because we know that the United States, the EU, are the ones that have colonized, killed more people than anybody else, specifically Israel. If you want to talk about that, Israel is a terrorist state. You could talk about NATO, you could talk about the United States and with the things they have done. But of course, the EU Parliament got together, right? And according to Russia and according to others, this is a symbolic resolution that has no basis, no ground basis. It's not a valid resolution. It has no tentacles to actually be something that is valid. So Russia's not taking it seriously, but the EU is. And the EU decided that Russia is a state sponsor of terrorism and that they are going to collectively say that it is. So that is something that came into terms today. And Rachel, my colleague, posted something about this earlier today. She had the video of them pretty much saying this. So let's take a look at the video, and then we'll go from there.
We've vote now on the resolution as a whole. By roll call, vote is open. Many members have not voted yet. Vote is closed, and it is broadly adopted. Congratulations. adopted. We vote now on the
Right.
resolution as a
So
whole. I
NATO
also vote
adopted this stupid vote recognizing that Russia is a state sponsor of terrorism. And so Clare Daly had something to say about it. Clare Daly is one of the voices that has been, she's not where I would like her to be. She's not where I would be, but she is by far one of the strongest voices against the injustice and against the lies being put out by against Russia and by the EU, basically. So she said, naturally, there is a big pre-match media build-up on today's vote on recognizing the Russian Federation as a state sponsor of terrorism. Nice to see Irish media taking an interest in what happens here. I will be voting against this proposal. She was one of a few people voting against this proposal. And underneath that, she does say, this is where I disagree with her, this does not condone Russia's actions in Ukraine, as I consistently have done in votes as individual parts. I condemn Russia's invasion and call for a withdrawal. My overall vote is against the improper and unwise call for the use of state-sponsored terrorism designation. In spite of her attempts to say, look, I'm condemning Russia, it doesn't matter. She's been called a Russian propagandist. She's been called a Putinist. She's been called all kinds of things, saying that she's favorable to Putin, that she works for Putin. In spite of her stance, she has had this stance since the beginning, by the way. She has never said anything beyond, I condemn Russia's invasion. She has consistently said, I condemn Russia's invasion. And she has said, I just don't think what is being said is accurate, right? And then she also said, even the war hawks in the Biden administration have resisted pressure to designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism, because doing so would close off options for negotiating humanitarian and peace efforts. Only a fool does this. So this is a very political stance to take, very diplomatic. Hey, if you do this, then you're not going to be able to negotiate. Nobody even does this. Only her and Mitch do this, right? If I'm not, what's his name?
Mick.
Sorry,
Mick Wallace fam.
Mick Wallace, and he's in.
You want to hear Claire
video
here though with this video or no?
Yeah, let's actually hear what Claire has to say, and then we'll play Mick after.
I like the way we refer to her as Claire. Like
she's our friend. Yeah,
she's part of the fam.
She is fam.
State sponsor of terrorism is a term of US law. It doesn't exist in EU law. But a Zelensky advisor called for it in the Parliament magazine, and here we are again reporting for duty. And all it will do is make peace harder to achieve. Exactly, of course, what the extremists want. No peace, no off-ramps, all bridges burning, and Ukraine a permanent abattoir in a suicidal holy crusade against Russia. So, if you want to start naming state sponsors of terrorism, let's do it. European sponsorship of Israeli terrorism in Palestine, Western sponsorship of Saudi terror in Yemen, ISIS, the product of French, American, British, Turkish and Gulf sponsorship in Syria and Iraq. Decades of right-wing US-backed terrorism against the Cuban Revolution, the Contras in Nicaragua, death squads in Guatemala, in El Salvador. Remember Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, horror after horror, terror after terror. There's nothing constructive about the pot calling the kettle black. Would you ever cop on, start championing peace and end the war, which is patently in the interests of EU, Ukrainian and Russian citizens?
Oh, Claire, how I love thee. I mean, she named, this is exactly what I would say. If you want to call Russia state sponsor of terrorism, how about we start with Israel and the United States and the EU, by the way, who have literally backed every freaking insane, radical, crazy terrorist group, Nazis right now in Ukraine. I mean, she literally talked about every single one of them. This is the pot calling the kettle black, right? In spite of how you feel about Russia, no matter how you feel about this conflict, the fact is, this is the most hypocritical thing you can talk about, right? And she literally called all of them out. She doesn't have to agree with what she, if she agrees with what Russia did or not. This is beyond that. This is about the fact that the EU has decided to basically be the literal, like, I don't know what else to call it other than bitches, other than like little like followers of the United States, and do whatever they say. And I mean, the fact that we have only 2 people in parliament that are able to say remotely anything close to this, this is what everybody else should be saying. This isn't any radical notion, but Claire isn't a radical. Claire is a literal, practical, truth-telling person. She's not a radical. She's literally just telling you guys what is the truth. And here's Mick Wallace, by the way, the only other person besides Claire that literally talks about what's going on. And just to give some context about what Mick was talking about, he said, imagine if the MEPs in the European Parliament had the same concern for young Palestinians killed as they seem to have for those killed in countries that fit with their geopolitical agenda. How much credibility can they possibly have? So again, who does the U.S. support? The U.S. supports Israel. And Israel literally goes and kills Palestinians and Syrians with impunity. So let's watch this video. This is what Mick was referring to. Oh, by the way, so this video, by the way, this is a 16-year-old Palestinian boy was murdered. Okay. And I almost had a breakdown at work, because there are people who I work with that are very much anti-Hamas, anti-Palestinian, and there are people that I work with that are very much pro-Palestinian. Clearly, you know where I stand. And so for me, it's very difficult to have what a normal journalist would say, oh, you have to show both sides. I don't believe there are 2 sides to this. I believe there's one side. I believe that the Palestinian people are victims, and I feel like they are enduring apartheid, right? And so at RT, we do show both sides of the conflict. And this is something where if RT wanted to censor me, they would censor my tweets and my disdain against the state of Israel, which I believe does not have a right to exist. And I believe it is an apartheid state. And if I was somebody that was censored and told to shut the fuck up, I wouldn't be allowed to say the things I say, because I don't believe that Israel has any sort of good to it. I believe as a state, it is a racist state. It is a colonizer state.
You're saying this tweet right here?
No, I'm just saying this is something completely like in reference to
But
the
they
video.
They would if they wanted to censor you. They would say, "I'm still."
If they wanted to censor me, they would tell me to shut up, and I would say, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to be censored by this because this is a big deal to me, and I am pro-Palestinian." I don't hide that. I don't hide that I am pro-Palestinian, and I'm pro-Palestinian not because I just like Palestinian people better, but because I feel like they are victims of apartheid. And I feel like I can't even say that without being called an anti-Semitic person. Okay. And like, for me, it's like there's always these discussions going on of how we present things and blah, blah, blah. And we have to show. But for me, it's like very simple. I believe that the apartheid state, there's a group of people fighting against that. And the moment they push back against what Israel has done, for every day for breakfast, Israel literally bombs Syrians and kills Palestinians. Nobody gives 2 shits. Nobody talks about it. But the moment people retaliate against Israel, it becomes this gigantic thing. And there was clearly some contradiction today at work between the 2 sides. And, you know, it's kind of like it's something I have to deal with as a journalist. But for me personally, there is zero, like, there is no this isn't like a side, oh, Democrats, Republicans, blah, blah, blah. No, this is like To me, when you're talking about apartheid, when you're talking about killing people, when you're talking about a country that's literally funded by the United States and their weapons, you got the Iron Dome, they support the Ukrainian Nazis, you have all of this going on. There's no equitable to balance sides here. There's just that. And so when we're talking about Hamas and everybody's a terrorist because they attack Israel, to me, I just get really, really riled up. And I can't have this conversation with people because I really get really irritated. So if RT wanted to censor me, they would censor me on that. But it's not, they haven't, and they know. And I tweeted about it today. They killed this Palestinian boy. Where is all the outrage? Oh no, it's Israel was attacked by these terrorist groups, blah, 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 blah. And I still, and I do feel like every network should do a better job of really highlighting the crimes against Palestinians, and maybe only Mint Press and a few others like that do a good job of that. But everybody else, in their effort to be unbiased, really just whitewashes the crimes that are committed against Palestinian people. So so I am not censored for saying this stuff, because it's just how I feel, and I say it all the time.
Bam, I have this.
Yeah, so Zelensky, fam, you know how you say Putin is Thanos? Apparently Putin is Thanos. He's the guy from what's that movie? With the Swedish girl, Let It Go. Anyway, Putin is the guy that controls the weather. Putin is the guy that he's the what is it? The zombie guy from Game of Thrones, the White Walker. Putin is a White Walker, guys. Breaking news: Putin is a White Walker, because according to Zelensky, Putin is trying to use the cold as a weapon of mass destruction. He literally said that to the AFP. He said the Kremlin wants to transform this cold winter, into a weapon of mass destruction. So, according to Zelensky, Putin is just controlling all this weather, and now Putin gets to say, oh yes, we're going to control the cold as a weapon of mass destruction. I don't know if you guys know this, but Russia is cold. Ukraine is cold. The cold will come regardless of who's in charge, whether it's Putin or whether it's anybody else. It's going to be fucking cold. Okay. And what have the Russians done for decades and decades and centuries is try to warm up their people with really good heating, because they know that once it gets cold, it sucks. Mm-hmm. And Zelensky is saying that Putin is just trying to kill them. And so I just put the two pictures there, fam, because I had to translate it, because this is in Russian. So that's why I put the pictures in the thing.
I thought you were going to show off and do some of your Russian, your Russian.
I'm still reading like a toddler, guys. I'm still not there yet, but I can read things now. So I apologize for my lack of ability and not having these readings. But basically, after all this, right, after what Zelensky said, he also signed into law. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the section. He signed into law this pretty much mandate that abolishes lifetime financial monitoring for officials. The problem with that is that once you do this, it's going to make it harder for Ukraine to join the EU. Right? Ukraine wants to be a part of the EU. Ukraine wants to be a part of NATO. Well, by signing this into law, this goes against the requirements of a country meeting the requirements to become part of NATO. So, President Volodymyr Zelensky has signed a law under which the state and banks will not be able to carry out enhanced financial monitoring of politicians and officials after their dismissal. This is contrary to one of the 7 requirements for Ukraine's entry into the European Union. So Ukraine will likely not be able to enter into the European Union because of Zelensky's actions. Quote, this may not publicly comment or criticize given they may not publicly comment or criticize given the situation in the country, but this is a very bitter step, and the result may be delaying negotiations with the EU and further steps towards Ukraine's accession to the EU. So because Zelensky signed this into law, it's going to be harder for for Ukraine to become a part of the EU. It's going to be met with more suspicion. And what Pasta just showed on the screen was just this older proof from the Pandora Papers that were approved by the State Department, right? To show, oh, there's some corruption, blah, 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 with Zelensky. Well, via Zelensky, his partners, of course, among them Kolomoisky, had ties to just vast amounts of corruption, completely putting out their money in offshore accounts and the usual things that rich people do. And this was known a while ago. We talked about this years ago, Pasta, about Kolomoisky and about his corrupt charges. But Zelensky, of course, was created. He is a product of Kolomoisky, who had ties, of course, also to the Azov Battalion, the C-14, and other Nazi elements in Ukraine. And more people are starting to figure out who Zelensky is and who his ties and his corruption are. Meanwhile, Zelensky is trying to diminish the oversight on corruption and officials in power. So even if you thought that Russia was evil, even if you thought that Russia didn't have a right to interfere or invade Ukraine, even if you thought that, you can't deny the fact that Zelensky is a corrupt individual, that he has ties to the most corrupt individuals, that even papers like The Guardian, the New York Times, and the Washington Post have had to admit that Kolomoisky and his accounts offshore and his business deals are completely corrupt. And you can't hide that. I mean, that's just, Zelensky wouldn't be where he is without Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky made him. And now people are starting to realize that, even if you don't like Putin and however you feel about Putin. Tom.
Okay, I'm going to add the next thing too. Here we go.
So Dan was actually, I don't know if you guys caught this. If you watch RT, maybe you caught this, but Dan was in the studio today, and he basically gave a 20-minute interview talking about his experience, because he went to the Donbass, talking about how the crimes against Russian soldiers have been committed. More and more things are coming out, guys. The New York Times, the Washington Post have had to admit, hey, these crimes are being committed against Russians and against civilians by the Ukrainian army. So here's a video where he details how somebody, can you scroll up one bit? I just want to read his little context of what he said. A Ukrainian lawyer with expertise in humanitarian law and war crimes told him and the people he was with that the shell which hit the school in Donetsk City while they were there was American made. So let's hear what was said, if we can, if it's translated.
It's the bottom of the shell. Yeah, it's quite, right now I know it's M549. It's American shell, yes, NATO, 155 millimeters. It's bottom of the shell, yeah, you can see the size of this shell. It have so big copper, pot of copper. Only this kind of shells have this. And here it was a rocket engine. It's shell that have some rocket engine, and its bottom, it's never broken apart, little parts. It's always you have always this big part is bottom of the shell. Yes, and here was the shell.
So, in case you weren't aware, your tax dollars are being used to go shell and kill people that have nothing to do with anything in Ukraine and abroad. And these people, of course, are completely innocent to anything that's going on. And it really sucks. And people like Dan, of course, who are Americans like Apostle and I, they come here and they're trying to do their job and their duty, go and see what's actually going on. And Dan's a great guy. We met him in Nicaragua, and he's a great friend of ours. But the fact that people like him and others have to go and show this and talk about this stuff so people could get some sort of idea, really, like, guys, like, this is it. We're not lying to you. This is a reality. These shells, these weapons are being funded by us, by the United States government. They're being, of course, also funded by NATO, by the European Union. And meanwhile, our populations, both in Europe and the United States, are literally falling apart. I mean, the economy is terrible in the EU. Energy infrastructure is falling apart. And of course, in the United States, we have a pandemic, an epidemic, let's just say, an epidemic of houselessness. We have an epidemic of just death from fentanyl. We have an epidemic of all these things, and that aren't being dealt with because all of this energy is being put into killing civilians, because that's at the end of the day who we're killing. It's really shitty. It's really shitty. And we feel like we're crazy, like people like Dan come here and they're like, hey, I feel like I'm crazy because I'm the only one talking about this. It's like, we don't have, like, where is everybody else? Where's the anti-war movement, right? Where's everybody else that's like, it's bad.
It's not going to happen anymore because now there's some accountability here. Right here, the Associated Press reporter was fired over an erroneous story on Russia attack. And this was crazy because, like, I think it took like independent media within 15 minutes of that shit happened to verify, to go over to the ground and go, look, this is, sorry.
It took us less than that because we knew that this was, I wasn't even at work. I was like out with some friends and we're all looking at this and we're like, there's no way Russia did that. And then within 2 seconds, Russia was like, no, we didn't do this. And of course, the AP reporter was fired over this story about the Russian attack. And this was journalist James Laporta, who had provided information that inaccurately suggested Russia launched a missile strike on Poland. Okay, so they fired the fall guy, right? They fired this person who reportedly got this information. Where they get this information from somebody that was supposedly an intelligence official that said, oh, yes, for sure, this missile that hit Poland was from Russia. But they didn't fire everybody. Look, internal AP communications viewed by the Post show some confusion and misunderstanding during the preparations of the erroneous report. Laporta shared the U.S. official's tip in an electronic message around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. An editor immediately asked if the AP should issue an alert on this tip, or would we need confirmation from another source and/or Poland? After further discussion, a second editor said she would vote for publishing an alert, adding, I can't imagine a U.S. intelligence official would be wrong on this. So is it fair that this person that got it from another editor and had to, because if you guys don't know how this works, when you are in press, right, and more so works for people who are the people that are writing this stuff out, right? You have to be verified by another editor who says, okay, we verify this. And then you double check with like a bunch of people. Like, this is it. You don't just go out and put this out by yourself. That never happens. You verify with somebody else. Hey, did Jack say this? Jack, can you verify this for me? Okay, no, Fiorella. We need to make sure that, okay, who else said this? Can we verify this? Let's make some phone calls, blah, blah. It's never literally like one person saying, hey, I think this is the truth. Let me just put it out there. That never happens. You don't do that. That's just not how it works in a publication. It doesn't work like that at RT. And I know for a fact it doesn't work like that at the AP because we have some people that have worked at the AP for working for RT. So I know that's not how it happens. So the fact that they have this person as a fall person is complete and total bullshit. And Caitlin Johnstone says it as much. She says, so the AP fired the reporter who quoted an anonymous U.S. official saying that Russia launched a missile at Poland, but continues to protect the anonymity of the U.S. official who used mainstream press to circulate an extremely dangerous lie. That's a bit fucked, no? So again, people are being protected. You're just going to get rid of the easiest person to get rid of who was doing their job. Yeah. At the end of the day, they think that the system is there to protect them and they think that the system is fair. Well, unfortunately, when you work for mainstream media, that's not how it is. And they're going to literally get rid of the people that are easiest to get rid of.
So, fam, let's talk a little bit more about the U.S. clarifying Russian oil price cap plan. And maybe you can provide a little context for this because a lot of people have been talking about this. They didn't understand what it really meant. So I'm going to put it up for you right now and go right into it.
So the United States has said that they're going to put a Russian price cap on oil, meaning that they are only going to allow for Russia to sell, for the Russian oil to be sold at a certain price they deem appropriate, right? Because they think they have jurisdiction to do that. Russia, from the start, has said, we're not going to deal with that. We're going to sell things at the price we think we will sell them. The United States has been the country to benefit from the destruction of Europe, particularly of Germany, which would get cheap gas from Russia. The United States has benefited by this by being able to sell more expensive quantities of gas and other sources of energy like oil to countries because they have no choice. So this is why a lot of people have said that the United States did this on purpose, that they are willing to tank the economies of Europe. Victoria Nuland said, fuck the EU, right? So people have been alluding to that, like the United States wants to tank these economies in Europe, blah, blah, blah. So Russia said, no, we're not going to play ball. So the U.S. clarified the Russian oil price cap plan, which basically just meant they reiterated what they had initially said. The U.S. Treasury Department released new guidelines for service providers involved in the Russian trade oil, fam. And if you just go through it a little bit, if you just go down it, I'll read some of this stuff. Because they issued new rules for companies involved in the trading, shipping, and insuring Russian oil, saying that the companies that don't do this are going to be facing penalties, okay? And they need to be complying with Western price ceiling intended to slash Moscow's energy revenue. So this is about making Russia pay, making Putin pay for his oil. So the Treasury Department policy guidelines published on Tuesday, yesterday, permits American service providers to continue dealing in Russian oil only if it is, quote, purchased at or below the price cap, the exact level of which is yet to be decided. The department claimed the cap, set to take effect on December 5th, aims to, quote, maintain a reliable supply of the oil to the global market, end quote, while penalizing Russia for the conflict in Ukraine. So this, of course, applies to these companies relating across industries of trading, finance, insurance, etc. And they thought that they could control Russia this way. But Russia has said that they're not going to comply. Russia has said, we're not going to do that. They said that they will simply stop doing business with those complying with the scheme. And they said, we're not going to allow ourselves to be bullied, that we're like, just because the West decides to put these standards, we're not going to comply with this. They said, quote, The price should be formed by the market based on the balance of supply and demand. This is a bad precedent that could at any moment be extended to other suppliers to all global trade. This was said by Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak, and he warned this last month. So again, India and China have also said they're not going to respect this. Those are two big markets that have said they're not going to respect this. So the United States feels like they can justify and others will follow. I don't think that's going to be the case. And that's basically where they're at. So the United States is basically at this face-off with Russia, saying, and not just Russia, but everybody else, right? Saying if you don't follow this, we're, this is going to be bad for you. And Russia saying, well, we're not going to follow this. We're not going to sell oil to countries that are trying to put price caps on our oil. What gives you the right to put these price caps? Like, I mean, this is our shit. Like, what are you doing? And the US is just basically pretending that they have jurisdiction over everything. And I don't think this is going to end well for the United States. I think this is going to end really badly because countries like China and India are not cooperating with the US at all. And they have zero reason to cooperate with the US because they have their own trade and their own economic relationships with countries like Russia. So it just doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever.
All right, let's run into the next section. We're about an hour and 42 minutes over here going on. I just want to read some of the super rays really quickly so we can see. We have them up on the screen. Here's the first one. Thank you so much to the Combo Couch. That's by Diane Morris. You can see it over here to the right-hand side. Jlim V. Combo Couch received a tip. Thank you so much. Ronnie Graham. Read the Cuban situation. There are many influential, wealthy, overprivileged Latin Americans, individuals living in the U.S. who control the Dems and the GOP. Trump is an actual prostitute to these people, just like the Dems. You better believe he is, Ronald Graham, and so is DeSantis. They all are. Some of the person that we'll see that was on the FTX list, Bob Menendez, or is it Menendez? It's Menendez from Florida, received money. Jim V also received a tip. Thank you very much. That was over on the Rockfin. We haven't gotten anything yet on the Rumble Rants, but there's a decent amount of people over there, 31, hanging on out. So please, if you get a chance, go over to Rumble. We, of course, on YouTube, got almost 200 people over there on this lovely Wednesday before the election. Before
Turkey Day.
Before Turkey Day. All right, so let's get into this last section, fam. I want to do this because today was the day, right? Today was the day that we were going to hear Bolsonaro was going to bring a lawsuit forward. All right, this is the moment of truth. Now, the things that we've been hearing on our end have been certain accusations that the TSE worked with Lula to make sure that they rigged the election. Now, they have a DRE simple machine. Pretty much the chain of custody still starts when you walk into the room, you walk into the machine, you vote, and at the end of the day, you don't get any receipt, no paper in, no paper out. You don't get a receipt, but at the end of the day, they'll tally all these machines. Then they will put the tally, including the opening tally, up on each room. So in other words, it's made to the public so the public can be there. Fam, I don't know if you remember this, but when we were in the Colombian elections, and then we said the first time, I said the system allows Petro's people to have at least 1 to 2 people in every single precinct to record the information. They don't even post it on the doors what they do in Brazil. They just have it at the table and they can go around and taking pictures. Well, this is something that Bolsonaro's team could have done. And this is what you have to explain to me more than anything. The system has where it's cast, it's counted. There, and all those results are planted right there. So if you want to catch fraudulent actions in real time, then you have all the people there. There was about 120 million votes. That means if you divide by 5,000 votes per precinct, and I'm going to do the math really quickly, fam, because I just want to show people right up front, because no matter what you say, if you knew all this stuff beforehand, and this is a system you won 5 times under, and you had, there were inaccuracies, and you knew exactly where they were going to cheat you, because the only way they can cheat you is through the machines, then why didn't you prep for it? It's like we talked in Colombia. Every single step of the way, you can catch them looking at them. If there were some zeroed out machines and you had 2, let's just say, do what we did, where we went to the precinct beforehand, make sure every tape is zeroed out, make sure there's no internet, and at the end of the day, you just take pictures of what's on each one. If there were zeroed out machines for Bolsonaro, you would have caught it right there, and you would have sent these results in. If you just took pictures and you send the results in, they would have said, okay, we have all these spots. You would have been able to catch which machines were cheating you in real time. And you would have been saying, we got you right here. They didn't do that, fam. Instead, they were very vague. They were very whatnot. They would just say all these things that, they're using these machines. And it just didn't add up. So here's what came out today. So I was waiting for them to come with this information, fam. Oh, we have zeroed out machines. This is what they did. No. Bolsonaro sues to invalidate 250,000 votes over malfunction in ballot boxes. Well, fam, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Bolsonaro lost by 2 million votes. So I hate to sound like David, what's his name? The dude from, it didn't.
Adkins.
Thank you. I hate to say that I sound like him, but this is what the guy is even suing for. He's not even suing to invalidate the election. He's saying 250,000 ballots of votes are no bueno. So what are you doing? What you're trying to do is keep the narrative going with these inconsistent arguments all the time, right? They make no sense over here. Where's the Bolsonaro zeroed out machineries? People were saying, we got the data. We got you. I said, okay, well, let's see you bring that data. I'm like, is that data on the website? Oh, well, no, the TSE changed it. Wait, whoa, what do you mean the TSE changed it? Do you have the pictures of them changing it? Do you have the sources of them changing it? No, this is what we heard. It's so ridiculous. So Bolsonaro sues to invalidate 250,000 votes. Like I said, the only problem is he lost the election by how many votes? Almost 2 million. So here it is. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has filed a lawsuit asking the court to invalidate 250,000 votes from malfunction in ballot boxes, according to this Brazilian source. And you can go click on to look at the Brazilian source. Fam, my Portuguese is not good enough yet, so I can't do it. According to the petition, an audit carried out at the request of the Liberal Party found that the old ballot boxes cannot be considered due to having identical identification numbers. So in other words, what they're saying, and I want to bring up these points. They're saying that each machine doesn't have his identification numbers. They're also saying that these older machines that were made before 2020, they are not valid. Okay. Now, fam, that's a little bit of a kind of a misstep and trying to keep an argument there that is not valid. Like I said, it is an open situation. You can go and you can witness these. If there was cheating and the numbers, and not to mention, fam, there was a whole blueprint of what happened in the first round. You have so much data and information, and so much of this is in front of you that you will catch them cheating in real time, right? So you understand where Lula got his votes, where Bolsonaro's got his votes. You have all the data from the first round in front of you. You know the areas of contention. You would be able to say, look, Bolsonaro got 80% of the votes over here, and now he got 0 votes this time. They have none of that information, fam. It was all a pack of lies. It didn't come forth in the lawsuit. All they said instead was that these machines were old and they had malfunctions in it. So here's the numbers. According to the lawsuit, in the 2009, 2010, 2011, 2013, and 2015 models of the voting machines presented operating problems, okay? And insurmountable operating problems with an emphasis on the very serious failures of the individualization of each URNL log file and its repercussions in later stages, such as the digital recording of the vote, the RDV, and the issuance of the ballot box, and consequently, in the absence of certainty as to the authority of the voting result translated.
Authenticity.
The authenticity. Let me explain what they're saying here.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is that each machine does not give you the individual voting record. It only gives you the tally of who voted and the votes at the end. So they're trying to bring that out. They're trying to point that out. That is just kind of like this whole situation was like, well, that's against the law.
That's how it's always been.
Yes. But here's what the TSE said to them. They said, okay, so if we're going to invalidate all these machines and all these votes, we're going to invalidate them on the first round. Meaning that all those people that won in your party are going to lose now. If we're going to invalidate them, all those members of Congress that you had in the first round, they're going to lose too as well. And then the Bolsonaro team was like, whoa. And they tell you, well, you have 1 day to amendment because you're not going to just get away with the second round and go, okay, we have to invalidate these here in the second round. This was the same machine used. If you said that these 2009, 2005, 2011, 2019, all these machines that were made before 2020 are no good, then they're no good for the first round then too, right? And the Bolsonaro team is like, wait a second. No, we just want him down for the second round. It doesn't work that way. That's why I'm saying this is just kind of a vague situation. I also want to point out Bolsonaro has been hiding in his freaking house. He's barely come out and addressed the situation. Donald Trump, the whole step of the way, would tell you each state and what happened. He would say, this is what happened. The conversation at the ellipse, let me tell you what happened in Wisconsin. Let me tell you what happened in Pennsylvania. This is what happened in Georgia. That has not been the case for the Bolsonaro team. He has been silent. There has been rumors about this and that, and this is the shit you come forth with? These old machines are no bueno? And that's
he won with those machines, though.
5 times. I think
he won with those. That's the thing. He won with those machines before, and that's the thing. Like even here's the thing. Like I just don't, compared to the U.S. system, the Brazilian system is far more. You can trace the chain of custody. Literally, you can trace the transparency. It's one day of voting, right? Like it's like you have to have ID. Biometrics are even included. You don't have a full on vote for every single vote, but you have a tally sheet. We don't have any of that in the United States. We don't even have a fraction of that in the United States.
Nope.
Like not even. And like, again, Bolsonaro won with that. Like, I don't understand like why all of a sudden. And here's the thing. You don't have to like Lula. You could think Lula is the worst person in the world. You could think he's a globalist. I don't give a fuck what you think about Lula. Like, the reality is people voted, and it wasn't an easy vote. It was a close vote.
Yeah.
It was a close vote. Nobody's saying it was like he ran away with a vote. Like, this was close. This was a nail biter. And I think it just shows, where Brazil's at and how divided they are. And at the end of the day, Lula won. And that is, and what I get irritated on is how the left and the right are trying to equate this to the U.S. elections. It doesn't equate.
At all.
Guys.
At all.
At all.
At
so
all.
Fuck you on the left and fuck you on the right. It doesn't equate. You're both wrong. It has nothing to do with it.
The left drives me crazy because they'll never mention the negatives about Lula, the concerns about Lula. But when it comes to the election, I think a lot of them don't understand what's going on. We do. I've been waiting for this report. I've been waiting for them to say, okay, let me see the evidence, bring it forth. If you're saying that Bolsonaro got zeroed out votes and machines, first of all, I really have zero sympathy for you, the fact that you weren't prepared and you didn't catch this in real time, because what stopped you? I'm going to do this math. I want to do it really quickly, fam, because I should have had it up, but I want to make sure that people understand this, because if you understand the election rules and you understand everything in which way you can be cheated, you got to safeguard against that. You got to be prepared. If Bolsonaro really thought he had a chance to win this election, okay, so let's say there's 120 million votes, okay? Let's say there are 4,000 votes per center on average. Some will have more. Some will have extra. I think the Sao Paulo affluent voting center we went to, right, had about 6,000 voters because they had about 25 rooms, whatever, and about an average of 400 votes per room, whatever it was. Okay, so that means there's about 30,000 precincts, fam. Okay, so let's even say there's 40,000 precincts. If you have 40,000 precincts and you have 2 people at each precinct to take pictures and look at that and to report it to one person, that's 3 people per precinct. That means you need to have 120,000 volunteers. That's nothing. You got 57 million votes, bro. You can't get 100. Even if you had to pay half those people $100 a day, that's like $600,000 to safeguard an election. I said this before with Petro. I said, fam, they have the only way they can cheat. They have an immediate tally, which is open to the public. We can walk up. We can take pictures. They don't even put it on the door the way they do in Brazil. Brazil, they put it on the door, the before and after. Boom, boom, boom. We'll show you. Because why couldn't they just do what the Convo Couch did and all teams? It's easy you would catch them in real time. They wouldn't be able to cheat you. Bolsonaro's people didn't do it. You know why? Because they knew there was no cheating. They knew they would lose. They would catch people in real time, forget about it. So you're talking about 60,000 volunteers total? across the whole country of Brazil? No way. No way. And I want to show this here for him because this is really important. What did we do? We went and we looked. And this is how the system works. You go into the room and you can, and once again, I went into an affluent area. And I want to say something too as well. When we get to, I'm going to show you something here, ladies and gentlemen, because this is something I also said to Fiorella, right? So this is the checks and balance are in play here in Sao Paulo. This is an affluent area. As the Brazilian elections are almost ready to begin, here in Sao Paulo, now the Brazilians choose their next president. So I went into several rooms, but this is the room I stayed in, and I showed you guys a whole report on it.
Governor and president.
Okay, so let me show this here.
This is here. It's the electores aptos is who the number of people who can vote here, and the total of.
What's the number of people that can vote here? Okay, where's that number? I want to make sure.
Which one?
How many people can vote in this particular?
Yeah, it's here 390
in this room.
Yes, in the
Okay,
room.
beautiful.
And like that federal deputy, the here the people who can vote, the number of votes that for deputy, in the personally here for the party that you can just vote for the party, like it's blank votes, the new votes and the total votes that should be 0. So for all positions, state deputies, for senators,
And you can see they're all 0 right now,
yeah,
everybody.
all 0. And
Very
president,
important.
yeah, 0. And
And it's
here
just
the,
picking up.
this is the list of all candidates.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, because now it's like for federal deputy, state deputy, there are a lot of candidates, and
And you've been
Okay.
working the system for this is your 4th time, you said? And
yeah,
very efficient. Okay. And you can see that's the first check.
yes.
But it hasn't been cut yet there, so it's still, okay.
So, printing the name of all candidates that will be,
Perfect. And now what do you do with this report?
and now we have to store it for when we finish the election, we have to put all together to send to the electoral court.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they will check all like that. Yes, it was no votes.
No votes.
Before the.
Perfect.
And
We
all
saw the
have,
zeros.
We all have to sign.
Perfect. I'm going to sit in the corner until you do the next thing. Thank you so much. So, fam.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Pasta, question. Do you
Sure.
get to do this at US elections?
No.
What happens when you try to even be in the room?
Oh, they kick you out. They kick you out.
Oh, okay.
I think just recently in the well, they have machines count the stuff, so they can, you know what I'm saying? But I think just recently, fam, they just made a rule that you can't even bring cameras into that. You can't even film the machine counting the votes, let alone see the things and whatnot.
But our
And-
elections are fair and transparent in the United States. We're the greatest country on earth. We're the most democratic. And if you question our elections, you're a right-wing, conspiracy theorist, by the way. Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, fam. Every single candidate, every major candidate has the right to send people in there to watch these things, to look at these things, to make sure there's no irregularities. We got to remember, up until this point, you had to re-register to vote 5 months before the election. So the elections
Correct. In Brazil,
clean.
yes.
You have to go on one day of voting, a national holiday, to your designated location, fam. There's no vote centers. You have to go to a specific location. So we can track every voter down to each room, right?
Do you need an ID?
You need an ID, fam. You must.
Really?
Fam, you must. Fam, guess how long it took to vote? About 5-6 minutes. That's about it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you didn't have to wait for
Really? It didn't
hours.
take like 2 hours?
Nope, not at all. No,
You didn't have to order pizza?
Nope, not at all, fam. Oh, fam. And
Wow.
the chain of custody starts when you walk in the room. We just saw, listen, I went to every single room, fam, to make sure that internet, and I only had my phone, so I couldn't film it, but to make sure the internet was not evident in every single room. No internet, nothing connected to the internet. And guess what? I had every right to go in there and do that. Just like every major candidate has the right to set up a team to go and monitor what happens right there every single time, fam.
So why? I don't understand. I thought the United States had the best elections and they were the most democratic, and that's why we have the best democracy in the world, right?
Yep.
Wait, are the votes cast where they're counted?
Yes, fam. Yes, which
in
means
Brazil.
that you can go look, and as you can see in the more affluent areas of Sao Paulo, Bolsonaro edged out Lula da Silva in the 13 voting rooms we visited. Now, there were another 7 rooms that I didn't get to because they were still posting their things, but we were kind of moving around. I was trying to, Fee and I and Gloria were trying to set up films. Here are the results of 4 rooms. Now, I got 14 rooms that I got there, and I want to point this out. Here it is. You can see how it looks. Lula, 85 votes. Bolsonaro, 137. Then you have all these other candidates over here that got a few right there. But you can see 137 to 85. Here's another one, 136 to 85 and 54 for Simone. Here it goes, 132 to 94. Close. And the final one, fam, 133 to 97. Now, the thing I want to point out is what I said to you, fam, right? Which was, fam, if Bolsonaro is only winning by a little amount in this area over here, it's going to make it almost impossible for him to beat Lula, because Lula's going to freaking just march it up from the favelas and everywhere else we went. They were pro-Lula, throwing the L's up. So I've said from the get-go, Bolsonaro has overperformed. And how can people explain from the first time where he was like 5 points behind that he got this close, that you think that he should win in a landslide? Those numbers right there will tell you in that affluent area that if Lula is getting that many votes, it's going to be tough. But there it is. They post all these numbers on the door. So if I'm walking around working for a campaign, I'm doing what I did right there. I'm taking pictures to all the rooms and sending it to somebody. And if somebody's sitting back at home base and like, fam, we see in room number 67, Bolsonaro got very little votes. Get that machine. Take that machine. Let's say that machine needs to be audited. Send a team right there. Say this machine is under suspect. We want it flagged.
And you can do that.
And we want it flagged and we want it audited. Why didn't they do that, fam? Why didn't they do any of that right there? I mean,
there was nothing wrong with those machines. That's the thing. And again, and as Pasta just said, if Bolsonaro was barely beating Lula, this is an affluent area. Okay. We walked to this area. We were staying in a hotel. This was an area where it was wealthy. I mean, it was a nice area. It was just completely clean, completely different than the other areas where we went to, the favelas. There was no way. Like, if he was getting these numbers, barely beating Lula, everywhere else he was going to lose. And it was still close. Nobody's saying, we were completely against the people that were saying that Lula was going to run away with this, that he was just going to have no problem. No, we were like, no, this is going to be much closer than a lot of these people think it is. Okay. And it's not just because every single person was a racist, as Pasta said, it's because they had other things they were looking at, whether propagandized or not. In my opinion, there was a lot of propaganda against Lula. But also, of course, there were serious concerns about Lula as well. And that's the reality. So it was going to be a close race. But like when you're looking at this and Pasta, I remember you saying this, like if Lula's getting that close in these areas, he's going to win this election.
Yeah. And that was the first round too as well. And you can see the person who finished 3rd and 4th both endorsed Lula. We said that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to equate over, but this is going to make it really, really tough. One of those people, I think the woman Simone Bet, the one who finished 3rd there. Put it right here as well. I'm sorry.
I think Simone, I think it's her name.
That Simone, Tibet, right there. That person really fought with Bolsonaro on the regular basis. A lot of her people like hated Bolsonaro because Bolsonaro has been seen to be so rude to her and shit. So this was an uphill battle. And like all I have to say, if in fact you had this smoking gun evidence, where is it? Because the claims that Bolsonaro just made, and they said, all right, so you want to say these machines are no good, so I guess we got to remove it from the first round. They gave him a day. You guys got to have a date if you want to amend your argument, because then we'll remove the people who won in the first round. Oh, a lot of your people who won in the first round. It's a vague bullshit argument or accusation to say that these machines right over here that were made earlier have software glitches. They don't have individual numbers. They don't have individual votes. Let's get rid of them. All right. So your congressional wins, I guess we'll remove them too. And like you said, because it's just a bullshit argument. If they wanted to catch fraud in the Brazilian election, you can catch it in real time. I'll take this system any day. any day over the American system, ladies and gentlemen. They don't have the proof. Lula, it's a country where he's been twice the president during enormous economic times. What did Bolsonaro really have? Okay, if you don't want to blame Bolsonaro for the shit that happened during the COVID and the financial situation, fine. So what did he have? He had a culture war movement with a lot of conservative Christians that want him to win. And fam, in that argument, in that article, there's people saying, once again, we don't want to hand it over to communists. These aren't freaking, Lula's not a communist. He's a compromise between the communists and capitalists because he'll get money from those agricultural people, the small agriculture.
He's milquetoast.
Yeah.
He's milquetoast.
Yeah.
He's not. Petro's not a communist. Lula's not a communist. None of these people are fucking communists. Like,
He's
this
not
isn't
somebody
about
I would support anymore, especially with his ties to the left and all that. Look, I get it. It's going to suck. Lula is pro-vaccine. He said he's not going to mandate it. He said though he's pro-vaccine. His campaign told me this. His cabinet told me. Listen, not his cabinet, his campaign, excuse me. That sucks. I get it. But that's not up for us to decide. That's up for the people of Brazil. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, this was some weak shit. If they zeroed out machines, where's the proof? Where's the accusation? Where's the lawsuit? There's no lawsuit that says that we caught irregularities and zeroed out votes. It says these old machines have glitches and we need to get rid of it.
And by the way, to all the leftists trying to mock Bolsonaristas by comparing them to Trump supporters, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing yourself a fucking disservice. It has nothing to do. Our election system in the United States has absolutely zero to do with the Brazilian election system. The election system in Brazil is 10,000 times better. And it's not even my favorite election system. It's not even the election system I would go with by any means, by the way. But it is far better, decades better than our election system is in the United States. You cannot stop fucking comparing the US election system to the Brazilian election system. Two completely different things. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're on the right, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you're on the left by comparing these two. Because I've seen both of them do it. Oh, look at all the Bolsonaristas. They're just like a bunch of Arizona Trump supporters, blah, blah, blah. And then I've seen the right be like, oh, yeah, look, we need to do what the Brazilians are doing. But no, two completely different election systems, guys.
Yeah.
Stop.
And the Arizona,
it shows a very small understanding, not just of the geopolitical aspect of two countries, but of the election system as a whole. It's two completely different election systems. Period.
Let me say this much too as well. The censorship in Brazil is not fucking cool at all. This whole, you have one judge who's deciding who gets censored or not. I really wish he would back off on this shit. And yeah, the protests are real. But there's no validity behind these protests as far as the math that's concerned when it comes to these elections. These elections can be watched in real time and can be caught the fraud in real time. Of course, it's a DRE system, a direct recorded electronic system. I wish they would do away with it and get public counting and hand-marked paper ballots, but that's up to them. But to come along and make all these accusations without the numbers behind it, I mean, you have nothing. All these people were saying, fam, that they were going to catch these, they have it in real time, that this is fixed. I'm like, you're full of shit. You're full of it. You're full of it. And right now, after this lawsuit, when that's all you named was old, outdated machines, you got nothing. You got nothing. Deal with it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and not only that, it's just bad because it just discredits like both, right? It's like when we're talking about our unjust election system in the United States, we're talking about the fact that we have a month or more of voting. We don't have a chain of custody. We can't go back and trace, hey, this person voted at this precinct, because they can vote wherever the fuck they want to vote. We don't have IDs. We have envelopes that could be given to everybody. Like, I mean, you don't have any sort of biometrics. And I'm not saying biometrics are my favorite answer, because they're really not. I don't even think you need them if you have a paper trail. But like, we don't cast the ballot where it's counted. We don't have a chain of custody. Anybody can vote wherever the hell they want to vote. There's no ID system. Everybody gets a vote by mail ballot. I know I've gotten vote by mail ballots, even though I haven't signed up for one. It's like this whole thing. It's like completely different. And yet people want to tie because there's a lot of right-wing support in the United States to the Bolsonaristas in Brazil. They want to tie this together. It's not the same thing, guys. I'm sorry. It's just really not. Like, if there was some discrepancies in the Brazilian system, we would have caught it. We literally would have caught it. Like, Pasta would have been the first one. Literally, he would have been like, Fiorella, no, I'm sorry. There's like a situation here, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just isn't like there's just what I mean. It's just I'm serious. Like,
I was
Pasta
skeptical.
had zero.
Yeah.
He's not pro Lula, Pasta. So there's no way.
I used
so, like,
to be.
it's just
I used to be. I want to point that out that I used to be, but it's been a long, long time. Lula is no Evo. All right. Listen, totally two different people. I want to point that out. And yes, fam, I was very skeptical going into it, but when I saw the system, I'm like, okay, if there's going to be any cheating, they're going to be able to catch it. And they'll be able to catch it in real time. All they have to do is have butts here. You know what I'm saying? It's because everything is once again transparent in front of the public. The machines are zeroed out, and then the numbers coming across. Here's something they made the accusations in. They said, well, these machines are no bueno because according to the Constitution, blah, 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 they need to have the individual voting records there. Well, if you're a Bolsonarista, you know who voted at each place. You can call them up and say, hey, listen, I'm taking a poll. Would you be interested in telling us who you voted for? And you can get all that information and say, see, it didn't match up. They never did that. They're showing vague comments and letting it just kind of hover out there. They just want to keep the narrative going. This lawsuit just exposed themselves. There's nothing there, guys. If there was something there, they would have caught it. And let me ask you this, guys, ladies and gentlemen. If you think that the election system was cheated and they didn't do their due diligence beforehand, are they deserving of fucking getting the election overturned? If you knew that right there in front of you. I said this shit in Colombia to fam. I said, fam, the way the system's set up, this is first round going to the second round. I said, we know that if there's any cheating taking place in the Colombian elections, it was the tabulation machines, right? But they have a preliminary count at every single table right there. I said, Gustavo Petro should get his people out there and go to every single table and take a picture and send that information over. So now they have a count beforehand, right? Which they can't go and cheat them. Well, if the Bolsonaristas, whatever they call themselves, went there and Bolsonaro had this set up and they had 2 people per precinct and one person they had to report those numbers to, they would catch the fraud in real time. They would say, this number's not adding up. They already had the data and the information from the first round, guys. They had all the information. You could look at years before to see what areas Bolsonaro was strong and weak in. You have all this information in which you could say, we got you. But they didn't say we got you. They said, well, look at this here. These machines are old. This is no bueno. Look at this over here. They have glitches. These machines are not individually listed. Yeah, but you have all the information. Each room will tell you the count right there of what's going on. You have it in front of you. They put it on the door. They put it on the door, and you have every right to flag the machine, check the software. They didn't do it.
Dude, we can't even go in the room in the United States. We get kicked out. We can't even be there. Like,
Okay.
it's a completely different system. We're not even allowed to be in the room. We can't even, nobody even gives a crap about elections in the US. They still think that if they vote harder, their team is going to win, which is complete and total ridiculousness. People are already trying to decide who they're going to vote for in 2024 without actually understanding that we don't have fair elections in the United States. And we haven't had them for decades.
Yeah. Which I might be going to Phoenix and go and speaking on the Capitol if that's possible, if I can get in there. I don't know if they'll let a leftist like me get in there, right? But, you know, I did what I did in Nevada, and it's a totally different system. There's no chain of custody. All these ballots floating out everywhere. There's ballot harvesting. There's mail-in ballots. I mean, there's so many different ways. And then there's black box counting. That's not the case over here. And that's what they're trying to make the narrative. Like, this is like black box counting. These machines, we don't know what they do and stuff. Like, no, it's not. You can pull the software. You have the right to do it. There's all these.
We have a closed source software compared to an open software that they have in Brazil. We don't know where we can't even begin to trace these votes
at all.
This is why people at all. Like, it's completely different system. Like, if you're going to talk about elections understand what you're talking about. And by the way, it's not voter fraud, it's election fraud.
Yeah.
It's a systemic fraud, both on when it comes to, I don't know, pasta waiting 2 hours to vote, to the intricacies of the machines not giving you an accurate result, to where you don't know who voted for who. You can't have a chain of custody. You don't know who owns this company, the software company of a software company of another software company. That's the whole problem. It's the whole system of voting, and they weaponize and tokenize people of color, minorities, and poor people to say, well, we need accessibility, and the disabled as well. You know what they do in Nicaragua if you're disabled and you need to vote at a place that's like on the second floor? They literally carry you up there to vote. I'm not saying we have to go to those extremes, but guys, like, there's a reason why they do that, because they need to know the chain of custody of where this person goes to vote, and they need to be able to trace that vote. The fact that we can't do that with all our money and all our advanced technologies is because we don't want to, not because we can't. It's because they don't want to do that.
And
Simple
I know
as that.
that this narrative, they kind of put really vagueness out, showing a lot of Bolsonaro people. First of all, fam, I keep on seeing them use that same Independence Day Bolsonaro event where Bolsonaro hijacked the Independence Day event in Rio, and they keep showing that. People showed up, not for Bolsonaro, mostly for the Independence Day. Yeah, there were people who signed up for Bolsonaro, but he co-opted that event. And that event they keep showing over and over again. And I'm not saying that there haven't been truckers protesting and that people aren't pissed off. Yes, the country is very, very divided. And just what we saw,
country, yeah.
I mean, it's very divided. And just what we saw in the United States, where there's a lot of resentment from middle class or low income people working to poor people in the favela getting money. Lula talked about this. People were disgusted that there were indigenous people that lived in the favelas now showing up at the airport, getting a chance to travel. They resented that they were getting what they considered to be handouts while they were working their ass off. And that's something that you're going to see in the society a lot of times. Now, Adi Ads went there, and he said that he was threatened by State Department for reporting on the Brazilian protest. I heard about it. Adi is my friend. I love the kid. I'm glad he's home safe and stuff. But that has nothing to do with the election at hand. You can still twist the whole election narrative and make it seem like your guy got cheated, when in fact you don't have the numbers there. Adi has not looked at data. Adi was out there reporting on the protest. So yes, it does suck. Freaking Brazil is a complicated, crazy place. I am just glad that he's back home and that he's safe. But as far as elections being proven to be fraudulent, it's not there, ladies and gentlemen. It's not there.
And the U.S. is obviously favorable to Lula. I don't think anybody is denying that. I mean, the U.S. State Department thinks that they can manipulate Lula. They think the reason that they don't want Bolsonaro is, I think one of the reasons is because of his stance on the COVID, and because they see him as somebody they can control less. So they think that because they've had Lula before, because Lula's been president before twice, they think that they can control him. The problem is Brazil is a part of BRICS. And I don't see Brazil leaving BRICS anytime soon. And Lula has been pushing for a currency in Latin America. These are things nobody talks about, because you don't know this unless you actually study Latin American politics, which we do. So Brazil wants, Lula has been pushing for a currency for all of Latin America called the SOR. And this is like something that they've been talking about with Colombia, with Venezuela, with the vast majority of the countries in South America. So do I think Brazil is going to be as easy as the United States thinks to manipulate? No, because things are changing, right? The arena is going, it's not even ideological, it's economic. It's like, okay, we see where the wind is shifting, we're going to go this way. Do I think that Lula isn't going to play ball? No. I think Lula is going to be kind of like Xiomara Castro. I think he's going to try to play like some sort of like Gustavo Petro. They're going to try to walk that fine line. But I don't think he's going to be as easy to manipulate as the West thinks. Nicolas Maduro said he has hopes in Lula and he has hopes in Petro, just like he had hopes in Xiomara Castro. That says a lot, because Nicolas Maduro is like a Yankee go home guy. He's like, fuck you, fuck the US. Same as our good friend Daniel Ortega. He's like, Yankee, go home. We're going to do our thing. We're going to stand by Russia. We're going to stand by Cuba. We're going to tell you to go F off. We don't need you. We're going to leave we're going to kick out the OAS. Okay. That's where Nicaragua was at. Cuba and Russia are like this. You just saw our reporting. I don't think Brazil is there. I don't think Colombia is there. I don't think a lot of these countries are there, Argentina, whatever, but they're definitely understanding that they have to work with the countries that are there, and they have to go towards where the wind is shifting. So what they're going to try to do is play both sides, right? And so we'll have to see and follow that through. That's just the political aspect of it. What I feel about, Lula, where I think he's milquetoast, is irrelevant. He was chosen by the people of Brazil.
Yeah.
I have to respect that. It doesn't matter if I like him or not. It doesn't matter if you like him or not. That's the thing. We respect the sovereignty of the people of each country to choose whoever the hell they want. And it's that simple, because the moment you stop respecting the sovereignty is the moment you become a tool of the US empire. The moment you become the same thing and you say, well, I think I know better, and then you become that. That is not what I want to be at any given moment, regardless of all the globalist stuff.
Yeah. And to make this fair, kind of like analogy of sorts, this unfair analogy, excuse me, to kind of act like that Bolsonaro went through the same thing as Trump, that there are ballots, that there are dumps, that Lula is just like Biden. That's not true, man. We've been into the favelas where they're screaming, Lula, Lula, Lula. We talked to labor groups that said, hell no with Bolsonaro, we're done. The working class, definitely, there was some split there. Some people might have liked Lula. Some people might have liked Bolsonaro. But the owner class was also split. And they usually march in lockstep. But they wanted some stability. And they were done. Yeah. Fiorella got her phone stolen. Danny Shaw got his phone stolen. One of Amita's friends got his phone stolen. There's civil and social unrest. And I never like to downplay the homelessness problem. But from what we saw that night, fam, remember we were like, well, maybe we can walk. And Camilla was like, no, we're not walking. We got to drive through. The homelessness we saw in Sao Paulo, man, it was bad. It was bad. I can understand them wanting to make a change over there. And when we saw those numbers in Sao Paulo, and an affluent area where Lula was picking up a lot of votes, and an area that Bolsonaro should have dominated, you can do this simple math and go, hey, man, this is going to be very hard for Bolsonaro to win. This is a two-time president who people are very poor. The working labor groups, the agriculture groups were heavily for Lula. Didn't want anything to do with Bolsonaro no more. You can see this coming. So these vague comments that they're throwing out there as if it's something special, they got nothing. This is not proof. Liberal Party leader Vladimir Costa, and I'm going to be really quick, and an auditor hired by the party told reporters in Brasilia that their evaluation found that all machines dating from before 2020, nearly 280,000 of them, were about 59% of them, of the total used in October 30 runoff, lacked the individual identification numbers and internal logs. Neither explained how that might have affected the election results, but said they were asking the electoral authority to invalidate all votes cast on those machines. The complaint characterized as the bug as irreparable. Thank you. Non-compliance due to malfunction that called into question the authenticity of the results. Immediately after, the head of the electoral authority issued a ruling that implicitly raised the possibility that Bolsonaro's own party could suffer from such a challenge. Moraes said that the court would not consider the complaint unless the party offers and amended the report within 24 hours that would include results from the first electoral round on October 2nd, in which the Liberal Party won more seats in both congressional houses than any other. So you can see right there, fam, they said, okay, if you want to go ahead and put in this ruling, then we're going to go to the first round. And all these machines you said are no good, we're going to take away the votes from your party. It was a hold on. Yeah. Because it's a vague accusation, fam. It's so vague. There's no proof in that pudding that election was stolen at all. And that's just the crux of it, fam. They didn't have the zeroed out machines. They didn't pinpoint the areas. They didn't have these machines and said, well, you don't have the individual votes, and we polled this people right over here, and it's very often your numbers. They didn't have any of that. They threw out some vague bullshit explanation. And like I said before, If you were really concerned about these elections, you could have caught them in real time. Easily. It's in front of them. It's in front of them. You have every right to see the numbers. You would have been able to catch them. You didn't do that. And then you hid Bolsonaro inside your house, unlike Donald Trump, who was telling you every single area what happened. Every single area. They changed the rules for Donald Trump in 2020 because of the COVID. That didn't happen for Bolsonaro. It's been the same rules, the same system. He's won. His election's over in Congress and whatnot. This is BS. You got nothing there. It's over, ladies and gentlemen. Lula won. Respected.
Move along.
Fam, the results of our poll has come in, fam.
97.4% out of 422 votes says that Joe Biden is responsible for more murder. I don't think I voted in this, but I would have voted for Joe Biden.
So why, Elon Musk, is Alex Jones not allowed to come back on the site and Joe Biden is? I am not advocating for Alex Jones, ladies and gentlemen. I am not. I think Alex Jones and InfoWars shows on Brazil have sucked. And they've been irresponsible and they've been putting out false narratives. I think that Tucker's even had a little bit of that, not as much as Steve Bannon, but they won't have me on. No. But then, Alex Jones will have Jim Levy on again, because then Jim Levy will put up a post that says Bolivia is marching against communism.
Oh, God. God.
This is what they're doing. This is the divisiveness. This is to keep us fighting with each other. Bolivia, who's got like a 3-to-1 ratio of indigenous people, right, to non-indigenous people, is marching against communism. You have my number, dog.
Bolivians aren't even communists.
You have my number, Jim.
Anyway, Bolivia is like
shit we're dealing with.
Yeah,
it
sucks to be us. Like, it really does.
It does suck to be us. Team fucking sports, man.
Nobody loves us. We love nobody.
Dude, it'd be so easy for me to just kick it in one side. And then we hear accusations that the election here in America, China's behind it again.
I should just join PSL and become like all the PSL people.
You hear what I said, fam?
Right-wing fascist, blah, 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 blah.
China's messing with our election. Here's the thing. If we fix our election system, we need not worry about China. If we fix our election system, we need not worry about Russia. So I'm getting both sides.
China.
If we fix our election system, we'll have a whole different breed of candidates out there that we never had. Stop blaming China. Stop blaming Russia for everything.
China.
Stop blaming communism for everything. Let me see, fam.
AOC is the top communist.
I bet you here.
Clearly.
You want to talk about people marching against Evo's party, Evo Morales? Now, I once stood up for Lula because his battle against the poor. I've lost him because of his relationships to the left and everything else. What did Evo say about that shit? That's a weapon. They're using a weapon against us. He went out there and called it out.
Yeah, Evo literally said that COVID was a biological weapon for the New World Order. He literally said the New World Order, like in his speech, by the way. That's Evo Morales. That's not a left guy. He's not even president right now because of that. I mean, guys, like the US government, the State Department wanted to get rid of him from the beginning. I mean, this guy is the guy who's in charge, Luis Arce, is not at all even close to Evo's. Like he's milquetoast compared to Evo. But the people of Bolivia are facing the same culprits that are trying to overturn the government and trying to push the same type of coup that they pushed in 2019. Now, this is where I don't think Trump was the anti-war guy so many people think. Not only did he kill Soleimani, but he helped push these coups like in Bolivia, and he attempted a coup in Venezuela, right? So I disagree with people who think that Trump did less things happen under Trump than Biden. Yes. Right now, yes, absolutely. You could say Trump is a lesser of evils, but do I think things would be different this time around? I don't think so. I think he would succumb to the deep state. I don't think Trump is a non-deep state guy. Do I think DeSantis is more of a deep state guy? 100%. DeSantis would literally take us to war with China, invade Latin America in a heartbeat. Like, that guy is literally no. Like, if I had to choose who to throw my weight behind, I would choose Trump over DeSantis, because I think Trump is like not DeSantis. DeSantis is like old school McCain and Bush come together. Like, he's not good. I think people are going to realize that a little too late, though, unfortunately. But this is why I don't live in the U.S. So y'all have fun with that.
Fam, I want to bring up something really quick.
Yeah.
Just so we understand who Evo was, right? Let's just bring really quickly. I'm going to bring this up. And I have this right here. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Don't you dare. Fam, don't you dare. So here we go. Oh, man. I messed that up. But I'll get it up in 2 seconds. So during Evo's term as president, take a look at these numbers right here really quick, ladies and gentlemen. Ready? This is Evo when he was president. I'm going to put him up nice and big. He reduced the poverty rate by 42%. He reduced extreme poverty by 60%. Income per person has increased by more than double of Latin American average under his term. Literacy rate dropped from 13 to 2.4%. Unemployment went from 9.2 to 4.1. And this is Bolivia, still one of the fastest growing countries as pertaining to the GDP. Evo was the first indigenous leader of Bolivia. You want to say that the people are in the streets marching against this guy because of communism? Come on, man.
So I gotta say, Bolivia is a country, along with Chile, that was part of the Incan Empire, along with Peru, right? So you had Peru, Chile, Bolivia. Huge portion of the Incan Empire. A lot of the Native American people that lived there would speak Quechua, one of the major native tongues. People in Bolivia still speak Quechua, and I don't know very much about Quechua. Like, I mean, my family is Peruvian; they don't even know very much about that. But what I do know is that Bolivia was able to get rid of a lot of the old past imperialist type of neoliberal governments, unlike Chile and Peru, which embraced neoliberalism. Obviously, Chile under our good friend, our great guy, the fucking fascist, and Peru, of course, under the Fujimori. And those two countries went in that direction, whereas Bolivia was able to really hold on to their ethnic roots. They definitely had a larger population of Native Americans than both Chile and Peru, who had more European blood or whatever. That's an aside, but like, that is a part of it. So you had, of course, those elements, right? And so Bolivia definitely has a different makeup than the other parts of Latin America. But at the same time, like, beyond that, people saw their lives improve, as Pasta pointed out. When people who are working class get their lives improved and they get out of poverty and they start, being able to buy things and they start being able to participate in society, then they favor that government. That's kind of what happened with Lula, where people were like, oh, we got out of the poverty index. This is why we're supporting this government. And so in that case, it happened with Bolivia at a very simplistic sort of analysis here. Last week, Terry had Camila Escalante from Quechua News and Oli Vargas, also from Quechua News. They live in Bolivia. They know extensively everything about Bolivia. They spoke about what's going on right now. And Camila is not Bolivian. She's from El Salvador, but Oli is part Bolivian and part British. But they live there. I would recommend watching that video. It was on last Thursday. on what the F is happening in Latin America with host Terry Matson, because they really go into a deep dive if you want to understand further as to what's going on in Bolivia from people who have been in the area, not just like analysis from like, you know, even us, like, because we haven't been to Bolivia, and I do want to go to Bolivia, but I haven't been to Bolivia. So I when it comes to Bolivia, I'm always like, go look at them, because that's literally what they focus on. So I recommend going to look at that, because they've been covering it during that time where literally nobody was paying attention in 2019 except a few people. And I think it's important in terms of literally sovereignty, right? Because Pasta and I were all about sovereignty, allowing other countries to decide what the hell they want to do, like for their own people, right? So there it is. What the F is going on in Latin America and the Caribbean. That's what's coming up. The last one that was last time was about Bolivia. So if you want to know about Bolivia, very quick, I believe that's what it is. Yes, them too. Very good looking people right there, all of them. So there you could just see Bolivia's right-wing orchestrated civic strike. By the way, I just want to say this really quickly. Right-wing in Latin America is a completely different thing as right-wing in the United States.
Yeah.
We always talk about that. Like, what people consider right-wing in the United States is not the same thing as what people consider right-wing in Latin America. We know this. Like, it's two completely different things. I don't like when we're talking about right-wing in Latin America, we're talking about paramilitary, gun-toting, like, we're going to kill these people. We want them dead. Not like a guy wearing a Trump hat. Like, it's completely different. And Pasta and I particularly see it this way. Not necessarily everybody we work with, but Pasta and I particularly see two completely different things when we talk about right wing. Yeah.
And we asked that to Anya. Go ahead and check that out. That's that video. You can say, like Fee said, two good looking guys. I don't know, fam. I think I'm a little bit better looking than Ali. If you like whiter, like more like Fidel Castro,
Can we put up that picture, that the blasphemous picture that Oz will fake?
I'm trying to work with America First people over here. You got me looking like Castro. By the way,
no. I didn't do that. Somebody fucking make Pasta.
I know. I'll go get it too, and I'll put it up
Castro. Okay, my mother thought, she thought that I had posted a picture of myself and you. And I was like, no, that's not, no. I'm like, no. This is Castro. This is Pasta. They don't look alike. Okay. You guys are seeing things here. And then one of our friends was like, oh, it looks so natural. No, it doesn't. Okay.
It does look natural. And that's first off.
Oz is really good at Photoshop, but people were calling him Pastro or
Fam, first of all, Pasta run for president. I will be your campaign manager. I don't know why you are hating just because I look like,
You don't look like him. He's a newspaper man. You're a newspaper guy.
It's almost the same thing. You're splitting hairs here now, fam. You're splitting hairs. And let me see if I can find it in the bottom of the doc here. I got it right here. Give me 2 seconds. I don't know why I put that up. All right. Here, I got it for you, fam. Fam, are you there? Did I lose Fam? I lost Fam because she was ridiculous. Well, let's just share the screen. We'll share it right now. Here it is. This is what they're talking about. Thank you so much, by the way, for Friendly Brilliant. Guys, this is the picture that they're all talking about. This isn't funny. Yo Pasta, this is sacrilege. So somebody put up the picture. Look at that. Yeah, there's Fiorella. Now, the only difference is that's Fidel Castro would be smoking a joint. I would be smoking a blunt, but somebody just put that in. Fam, you're going to get me in trouble with my Patriot people. I can't do it no more. I'm sorry. I got different things going on. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much. We just lost Fiorella. She must have had some type of, here she is. She wants to come back in for it. Fam?
Guys, this is blasphemous.
How can you hate? How can you hate?
I gotta say, Oz did a great job with the Photoshop. I mean, the hair just flows in. My mom said it's the Gringo Castro. That's what my mother said.
Fam. Fam, that's it for the what's going on. Listen, I got some people online. Amber King is floating around. She has off Friday after she's been going to be making a ton of turduckens. Blasphemy. She sends me a picture of the meat. Oh, fam. Ugh. She's got it up there. But anyways, she's available Friday. We're going to see if we can get her in there. She has been so on top of this FTX stuff. I've actually leaned on her for some information so we can possibly talk about the FTX stuff since somebody didn't show up today. No big deal. We can see if we can maybe get a hold of her on Friday. Like I said, I don't know if I will be in the building. I might have to go and do this thing again. But that's only if they let me speak. I'm not going to drive 4.5 hours out to Phoenix unless they tell me I could speak. I'm assuming that Carrie Lake will be there. Mark Fincher will be there. A lot of election integrity activists will be there. Hopefully we'll get the opportunities to speak. We'll be able to talk about the math, fam. Because that's the most important thing is the math. So we'll see what's going to happen. We'll keep you informed. Like I said, people were trying to talk about this Brazilian thing as it's like a parallel to what's going on in the States. It's not. Two totally different situations. We do not have chain of custody. We don't have any of these things. And I really think that the Patriots or the America First people, whatever you guys want to call yourself, all right, my friends out there, that some of you I love you, whatnot, stop. Stop bringing up Brazil. Stop talking about China. You're going to make yourself look wrong. You're just going to lose credibility. Okay. And I'm not saying that
China.
at the end of the day, it's computers. Yeah, it's possible, but you didn't prove it. You surely didn't.
China.
You surely didn't stand against it. And secondly, China. I mean, where's your proof there? Just
but first, China.
Let's talk about the system. The system is wrong. Let's fix the system. Let's concentrate here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see if there's any more Super Rays, fam. No, there is not. We're good. 52 people watching over on the
right.
33 people watching on Rumble, 52 people watching on
everybody have
Boston.
a happy Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving or anti-Thanksgiving, whatever the hell you celebrate.
Fam, what are you gonna do?
I found some expats and we're gonna go have turkey, and not even turkey. I don't even know what they have. They're gonna have an American dinner sort of thing in this restaurant in Russia because that's what we're gonna do.
The Combo Couch will be back on Fridays, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great holiday tomorrow. Remember, it's all about being with your loved ones. We understand what these holidays might be about initially, but right now, I say, with everything being so crazy, the way they try to keep us separated for so many years with the COVID narrative, just listen, love the ones you are with and have a great time tomorrow. Try not to fight at the dinner table.
Bam!
Yes.
A year ago, we were in Nicaragua and we were having the best time with our Nicaraguan friends. And it was the initiation of a beautiful friendship with our Nicaraguan friends. And RIP, or not RIP, happy anniversary to our Nicaraguan excursion. And it was amazing. And it's forever life-changing. And I forever will love it.
All right. You're being too goofy. I'm out of here. For Pasta Jardula.
What the hell? It was a year ago. Fiorella.
And pasta, those ones and twos, fams. What do you have to say?
Happy Nicaraguan anniversary, Yankee go home era.
Combo out. Goodbye.